Hello and welcome to the set review for the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Usually this is something that I only do on Twitch, but this time I'm going to be publishing it on YouTube, see how it goes. And I just recently hit partner, so thank you everybody for your support. I really appreciate it. Remember to hit like and subscribe for more Magic the Gathering content. I try to publish multiple videos a week, the ultimate goal being one daily video, but it's still a work in progress. And this one's going to be a long video, so, you know, get comfy. These are going to be my first impressions going through the cards for the first time in Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and getting ready for its release in approximately a week and a half or so. So, very excited. And with that, let's get started. So, Bat Colony is a uncommon enchantment for 2 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 bat token with flying for each mana from a cave spent to cast it. Whenever a cave enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Now, these A+B cards tend to be pretty poor in limited. If caves are very, very common, like if every land in the set is a cave, then maybe we're going to change my thoughts on this, right? But I imagine the caves are just lands that are like the tap lands of the set or whatever, right? The special lands. And so you're not really going to get a whole bunch of those in your deck. And if you're leaning heavily into the caves energy, it could be okay, but you would need to spend like 3 mana from a cave to make this acceptable, right? So I'm going to give this one to D for my first impression. All right, second up here we've got the Clayfired Bricks. Clayfired Bricks is an uncommon artifact. Now, because of Scryfall and the way they do this, some of these cards might not actually be available in draft. So if you can, let me know in the chat if this one isn't actually going to be there, right? Because there's always some every set. But Clayfired Bricks is an artifact, and 1 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic Plains card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. You gain 2 life. And then it has one of the new mechanics for the set, Craft. And so Craft 5 of anything and 2 white, exile this artifact, another artifact you control, or 1 in your graveyard, and then you get to flip this over, and you can only transform as a sorcery. So it flips into Cosmium Kiln. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 colorless Gnome artifact creature tokens. Creatures you control get +1/+1. So it's an anthem, you know, being able to give all of your creatures +1/+1, but 7 is quite expensive. You get 2 bodies that are 2/2/2s. The front side feels better than the back side for this one. Being able to search your library for a Plains card, giving you something later, that giving you a rectangle that you can use later while gaining 2 life, seems like an effect that I think will be okay. I'm going to give this one a C. Oh, then okay, so this was uncommon. C. All right. Clayfired Bricks. Okay. Yeah. Maybe for late game in a token deck, yeah, exactly. I don't know what the archetypes are yet. So like my favorite way to go about it is to go in blind, and I imagine there is a token archetype like Celestia or maybe sometimes Azorius tend to be kind of token centric, and so you could put it into something like that. But I'm going to give it like a filler because I think the front side is okay. Generally, being able to find lands on turns 1, 2, and 3 are beneficial because hitting turn 4 land is so critical, right? So you're going to want to have synergies around it, right? So like the fact that it leaves an artifact behind too, maybe there's an artifact tokens kind of archetype. All right, we've got Dauntless Dismantler, which is another uncommon. 1 and a plains for a 1/4. Big booty. All right. Artifacts your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. And you've got double X and a white. Sacrifice Dauntless Dismantler. Destroy each artifact with mana value X. Wow. Okay, so artifact hate, but a 1/4? That's got it. I like that, especially defensively in like a control deck. Cowboy, you're saying you could do in booster to get specifically for stuff that's not outside of the draft boosters. Okay. But it doesn't work for LCI? Okay, well, this is an experiment, right? I don't know how good of content this will be, but we're going to try. So a 1/4 for 2 is a decent body, and being able to block your opponent's early aggression, we don't know how the pace of the set yet, but generally in control, this is one of the 2-drops that I'll be looking for. And at uncommon, though, it's not really bringing just like... I don't think this is going to be one of those ones that's like, ah, yes, I got Dauntless Dismantler, so it's time to be in white, you know? So I'm going to give this one a C. Alright, so for example, some of the cards haven't been released yet, because I'm doing this on Thursday, and the full set should be available on Friday. But we do have some spoilers, right? So like cards like this, I think are just ones that haven't been released entirely yet. And so we've got Dragon Runaway Controller, or Runway Controller, which is a 1/2 for 1. As long as there are 3 or more counters on Dragon Runway Controller, it has Flying and Vigilance. And then you can tap 3 untapped artifacts and or creatures you control to put a +1/+1 counter on Dragon Runway Controller. And then you get to scry 1, activate only as a sorcery. So we're starting to see, like, there's definitely going to be an artifact token creature deck in white, and this is going to be one of those rares that sends you into that direction. And being able to, like, if there, as long as there are a bunch of cheap artifacts that you're aiming to play anyway, being able to tap your artifacts after, you know, using them to go find land, so that you can make this bigger, is going to be okay in like a mid-range or control strategy, just because it's going to take a long time for this to actually be hitting for a decent amount of damage. But if you can ramp that, if you have any spells or things that you can put counters onto Dragon Runway Controller, then this can quickly become a flying vigilance creature that can apply a fair amount of pressure. So I'm thinking I'm going to give this one a B. I can see that putting me into the artifacts kind of archetype. All right, Dusk, Rose Reliquary. This one is an uncommon for 1 white, an artifact. As an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature. Oh, and then you've got the black heart sitting in the box, so that, you know, it's kind of hinting that it is a black-white card, which tends to be the sacrifice archetype, either black-white or red-black. So we've got Ward 2. When it enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or creature an opponent controls until Dusk Rose Reliquary leaves the battlefield. Okay, I like this a lot. The artifact / enchantment removal tends to be pretty good, and a cost of 1 is fantastic. The fact that they can't destroy this with a disenchant because of the Ward 2 until like turn 4 is also really good. So this seems like one of the better uncommon removals in white, I imagine. And if you can get additional synergies around your artifact or creature, we've already seen one artifact that gets you know, payoffs on ETB, and so doing stuff that like gets ETB value and then is fodder later seems like maybe is going to be a thing in this set. So I'm going to give this one a B. I think this one will be, I'll be happy to see this one. All right, Fabrication Boundary. We've got rare 1 and a plains. Artifact that has tap, add a white mana, spend this mana only to cast an artifact spell or activate an ability of an artifact source. Okay, so heavy artifact theme right off the bat. And we've got 2 of anything in white, exile 1 or more other artifacts you control with total mana value X. Return target artifact card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. Oh, cool. Okay, so if there's any way that we can get things like self-mill into the graveyard, might be able to get this to exile out something, something game-winning early on. This is one of like the 3 and a tap ability. You do need to kind of work to make this worth it. So it's going to be dependent on how easy it is to fill your graveyard. But being able to cast a 2-cost mana ramper, as long as you are very artifact heavy, can be pretty awesome, right? So I think this one's going to be a little bit of a build around, but a good enough of a build around that the downside of this is that it's a rare, so it depends on how early you get this, right? Like, if you're not in the artifact deck, then you don't really want to be doing this thing. But if you get it early, then it seems like a pretty decent build around. I'm going to give it a C. I don't think that that's good enough for me to be like, ah, yes, I'm going into the artifact thing. But I might be underestimating just how many artifacts are in the set. Oh, and we've got duplicates going on here, so pardon me 1 second here. We need to change this to cards, not... so that each one that has unique art isn't reprinted multiple times. So, all right, Get Lost. An instant rare. Ooh, for 1 and a white, destroy target creature, enchantment, or planeswalker. Its controller creates 2 map tokens, and map tokens are one of the things that are new to the set. They help you explore. So they're an artifact with 1 colorless, tap, sacrifice the map token, target creature you control explores. And when a creature explores, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you put it into your hand. If it's a non-land, then you can either put it into your graveyard or back on top of your library, and the creature that explores gets a +1/+1. And interestingly, too, is if the creature dies after it's already triggered the exploration, it doesn't fizzle the exploration, right? If the target dies when you target this with the artifact, with the map token, then it will fizzle, right? So keep that in mind about how that's going to play out, right? But if the creature does die after it's already been targeted and that's resolved, then you should still be able to explore. You just won't get the +1/+1. It's just an MTG streamer Arstall tells entire audience to get lost. Yeah. Sounds about right. Well, so instant speed, destroy creature, enchantment, or planeswalker. Like, they get 2 map tokens out of it, but that is pretty interesting. It depends on how detrimental giving them the 2 rectangles is going to be, right? Like, if everybody's dying to try to get map tokens for artifact synergies, then maybe this is actually a pretty bad drawback. But I'm going to give this one a B for instant speed removal in white, and it's cheap. So if you're in, aggro, honestly, any archetype really likes a cheap removal spell, right? Control can use it so that you can remove and develop on the same turn. Otherwise, it's just like, for the people running less than 17 lands, you can kind of abuse that. Guardian of the Great Door. The greatest of the doors. Alright. Man, we have not seen a common yet. I guess maybe a lot of the commons are being released tomorrow. Guardian of the Great Door is a uncommon double white for a 4/4 flyer, but as an additional cost, you have to tap 4 untapped artifacts, creatures, and or lands you control. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we've seen this sort of thing before, like in Brothers War. We had the guy that could tap the Power Stones basically to get out cheaply. It was a 3-cost 4/4 without flying that was 5 if you didn't have the synergies to tap additional things. So the fact that you have to tap 4, that's pretty intense, right? But if you can generate multiple tokens on turn 1 and 2, what's the earliest that we could get this out? Turn 3 or 4? So it looks like it's really aggressive, but it's a 6 mana 4/4, right? So if you're doing the artifact like creature and or land thing, this I think is going to be a little bit more of a trap than people realize, just because it is double pip white, and you need the synergy of being able to tap additional things, right? So I'm going to give this one a C. I don't think this one is just blowing my socks off. But a 4/4 flyer is a lot better if you are doing the synergies, right? So like if you're in the artifact deck, whatever that ends up being, then this goes up in value, right? But just in a vacuum, a 4/4 for 6 is not particularly good. So, hey, Giggling Warlock. Copen, you kind of like it. I want to think about it like getting it down later, but allowing me to double spell. Yeah, if you want to use this as like a top end of your deck, like treat it as one of your 6-drops, then that's definitely doable. And like I said, if you're really leaning into the artifact deck, which there seems to be in white, then yeah, if you pack one, pick one this, I think you can make it into a pretty good threat. But generally, you're not able to create multiple artifacts, so we'll need to look at like how many cards produce 2 artifacts in one turn. Because if you have to produce the 4 first, like I don't think you're getting this out much sooner than turn 4 or 5, right? Yeah, and the fact that it isn't, at least it's not off color, right? Like if white is mainly doing artifacts, then this is on point. So. Hey Shock, good afternoon. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And let's keep on trucking on. Maybe C's a little bit low, but like I think it's a C to a B, like a B if you're doing the build around thing, right? All right, Helping Hand, and another uncommon. Okay. Helping Hand, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped for 1. Okay, we have seen this sort of thing before with like Recommission, but it usually costs way more than 1 mana. And it's usually not terribly great. And being able to return a creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard, if you're doing like the Descended thing, or Descend, and filling your graveyard, I don't think that this... I think this will likely be just getting a creature onto the battlefield for 2 less, right? And so the more that you're doing the kind of like the graveyard recursion thing, then the more that Helping Hand is going to be awesome, right? If you're just like really low to the ground curve too, right? Like we've seen the 3 or less be a kind of theme for some of the archetypes in previous sets. So the better that you have, the better. Like if you have a bomb that's a mana value 3 or less, like the one we just looked at, right? The 4/4 angel, you can just throw onto the battlefield for 1, right? Like this is the kind of build around card that enables the Guardian of the Great Door to just be absolutely disgusting, right? So I like this one. I think I'm going to give this one a B. Might be too high without looking at the rest of the set, but my instincts are that Helping Hand is something that I'm going to want to play. Hey, Recruiter Lala, happy to see you. Is the whole set out? No. The whole set will be out in its entirety by tomorrow, but I'm trying to get a head start on it, and so anything that comes out that's in white, blue, or black, I will cover tomorrow, when hopefully we have all of the cards. All right. Kellen, Daring Traveler. It's a rare, one of anything, and a plains for a legendary 2/3 human fairy scout. Whenever Kellen, Daring Traveler, attacks, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card with mana value 3 or less, put it into your hand. Otherwise, you may put it into your graveyard. Okay, so we're starting to see that maybe Celestia is 3 or less. Put a question mark on that one. Well, a 2/3 for 2, that sounds good. it doesn't do anything when it ETBs, but it does when it attacks. So if your opponent doesn't answer it immediately, you start getting value out of it, assuming that your deck is majority 3 or less. So it is also an adventure, which is a returning mechanic that I will have to remember to take note of. I didn't realize that there were adventure cards coming back to the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, but we've seen this in Wilds of Eldraine, so we can play this for 1 forest as a sorcery to create X map tokens, where X is 1 plus the number of opponents who control an artifact. So is this a commander card? Uh-oh. I don't know which ones are draftable or not. Wait, so what was the thing that I can add here? Let's see if it goes away if I do in boosters. Does that work? No. Okay. Well, assuming I can't tell if this is actually going to be in draft or not, and I wish there was a better way for it to be distinguished. Okay, Cowboys Kid, thank you for trying to help me sort through this nonsense. We'll just grade it like it is in draft, and then if it isn't, we'll just remove it later, right? So, 2/3 rare, and then this is what I was talking about with being able to create multiple artifacts quickly. So X is 1 plus the number of opponents who control an artifact. So you can create at least 1 artifact on turn 1 if they're also doing the artifact thing. If the artifacts are ubiquitous in the set, then you might be able to do this on 2 artifacts if you're on the draw. Interesting. Well, a built-in turn 1 that gives you a map token into Kellen. 3 or less. That seems halfway decent. I might be overvaluing this one, but I'm going to give this one a B. And put a question mark on whether or not mana value 3 or less is the Celestia kind of vibe. It might also be a splash, right? Sometimes we'll see like these off-color adventures where, say, Orsov is actually the 3 or less, and then this is kind of off-color. So this one is better if that is actually what green-white is doing. All right. Okay, so we've got Kinjali's Dawnrunner, which is an uncommon 1/1 for 3 with double strike. When Kinjali's Dawnrunner enters the battlefield, it explores. So assuming that you hit a non-land and put a +1/+1 counter on it, you get a 2/2 double strike for 2. And if you hit the land, you get a 1/1 double strike. It can help you find a land. Okay, so these ones are tricky. This one with, like, in a vacuum when you don't know the pace of a set yet. A 1/1 double striker that gets you a land, or a 2/2 double striker that can fill your graveyard. So one of the things that's kind of cool is that Explore works with Descend, right? Is an interesting synergy. If you're able to use Explore a bunch, then you can use that as a way to get to the payoffs for Descend. And so if you're leaning heavily into the exploration or Descend, then I think that I like this a little bit more. That one's tricky, man. I'm going to give this one a C. And maybe come up on that a little bit later. All right. Copen also helps crafting. Oh, for the getting stuff into your graveyard for exactly, right? There's some really good graveyard synergies in this set just looking at the mechanics alone. So as long as there isn't a whole bunch of graveyard hate, that's going to make the mid-range decks that have the graveyard synergies a little bit better. but all it takes is like one graveyard trespasser kind of thing that eats the graveyard really well for that completely to fall apart. So we'll see. All right, we got cils Flanker, which is a rare cat warrior 3/1 for 3 with flash. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Cils Flanker for each creature that left the battlefield under your control this turn. Okay. You gain 2 life and scry 2. Oh baby, I like that. Or exile target player's graveyard. Speaking of graveyard hate, here we are. Okay, well, for all of the reasons that I just mentioned, exiling your opponent's graveyard can potentially be really good in this set, right? Like if you're up against the descend archetype, then that just is great. I think the +1/+1 counter on it for each creature that left the battlefield under your control this turn is the weakest part of the whole thing. But Scry 2 generally is somewhere around the value of drawing a card. So being able to play a 3/1 for 3 that draws a card and gains you 2 life sounds really good to me. So I'm going to give this one an A. I think this one, it's a single pip in white. It's cheap. Goes in a lot of, like the 3-slot deck tends to be the largest slot in your deck. Sometimes the 2-drop is slightly bigger, but I think this is one of those cards that I'm really going to like, especially because of the graveyard hate. So if it turns out that Descend is a complete whiff of a mechanic, then the value of this card will go down. Yeah, and it's just 3 mana. Exactly. That's I like a lot of what this card is bringing, and it's they got reasonable versatility about whether or not you want to hate on their graveyard, and if they don't have any graveyard synergies, then you could just draw scry 2 and gain 2 life with a 3/1 flash can be really important in the race. Yeah, so I think that even if you're not doing the graveyard hate, it's still very viable. Copen, you're giving that one like a B instead of an A. That's fair. That's fair. I tend to rate 3 and 2 drops higher, right? Like if I tend to really like 2 and 3 drops, so that one's definitely caught my attention, and maybe A is too high. We'll definitely see. All right, so we've got Malamet War Scribe, which is 3 of anything and double pip white for an uncommon cat warrior. So yeah, we just don't have any of the commons yet. Is that what's going on? Malamet War Scribe is a 4/3 cat warrior. When it enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. Okay. Wow. Interesting. So generally, if you have something that gives +1/+1 to your whole board, it is not a very good card. But anytime that you see that +2, it makes even a 1/1 into 3 damage, and that just adds up really nicely in limited. So generally, though, you want that Anthem effect to be around 4 mana or 3 mana, like we saw with Gnawing Crescendo with the +2/+0. So it depends on how go wide you are, but I can definitely see this going into some decks. I'm going to give this one a C, though. The double pip and white 5-drop, like you really need to be doing. And Recruiter Lyle, you're saying this is a busted card. You give it a solid B. Maybe I'm too far down on it, but double pip tends to make me a little bit wary, and I also don't like cards that don't do much on an empty board. And am I going to give all the cards C again? No, I gave all the cards in Wilds of Eldraine a B anyway. Yeah, it's a pretty easy one to build around for sure. Don't get me wrong. If you're mostly white, this is a fine 5-drop, right? Which is a C is a fine 5-drop. I just don't think that I'm gonna look for this uncommon and be like, haha, I got this one, so this is gonna enable me to do this thing. Yeah, exactly. And if you aren't already in white, then this becomes a hard pick, right? So in pack 1, the value of this is gonna go down, and it goes up in pack 2 and 3 once you know that you're in that thing. So overall, not one of the uncommons that I think is worth a B that I'm super excited about. But to each their own, you know? Like, I'm usually... I wouldn't say that my first impressions are, like, spot on. I think this is just a fun way to orient yourself with the set, and it's all wild speculation until the game is played anyway, right? Market Gnome, we got an uncommon... Where, we got an uncommon 0/3 Gnome for 1. And when Market Gnome dies, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Ooh, that's nice. It's an artifact. And then when it's exiled from the battle... when Market Gnome is exiled from the battlefield while you're activating a craft ability, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So, okay, so this is great. So the craft tends to be expensive, right? And so one of the things that if you're going to do the craft thing, you're trying to craft into additional value to outvalue your opponent later as the game continues to go on later. So Market Gnome as a 0/3 that blocks well, blocks early pressure, and then leans into the strategy that it's best in is fantastic. And then if you aren't able to craft it, it's card neutral, which is also something that midrange is very interested in doing. So this one is a B. This one is a... I think this is a good example, actually, if we look at between these two. This fits a specific strategy. This fits a specific strategy. This, as a 5-drop, goes into less decks than this, though, as a 1-drop. And yeah, so I mean, it is a little bit of the A plus B, but this is the A. It doesn't, it doesn't need the card already. So I like this one a lot. Yeah, and a 0/3 for 1 is great as long as the set isn't filled with a bunch of 3/1s for 2. So yeah, the only downside with this is that it's an uncommon. Yeah, and well, and without knowing the pace of the set, this card could be completely garbage, right? If it turns out that like this is a very aggressive set with a bunch of 3/1s that this can't block, then this could very well be not a B, right? But it blocks the Grizzly Bears on turn 2. It's card neutral when it dies. There's a lot of good things going on here. And yeah, the craft seems... I haven't really looked at a lot of the craft cards yet, so it's possible that the craft thing is just garbage as well, and then that will drop how good this is. But first impressions, as long as craft is like... I just assume that the mechanic that it's trying to be is like good enough. And so that's kind of where I start, right? And if the mechanic turns out to be garbage, then... like blue-white, right? I graded a bunch of blue-white cards in Wilds of Eldraine very highly because it was like, okay, well, this is going to be good if the archetype is good. So, same thing with craft here. All right, we got Miner's Guidewing, which is our first common. What? We finally got one. We got a 1/1 flyer with Vigilance for 1 at common. Oh boy. Okay. Well, that 0/3 isn't very important if they're just flying over the top of you, right? When Miner's Guidewing dies, target creature you control explores. Alright, so... these ones are a little tricky, because when a creature dies, triggers have always been worse. Even when they are, like we had the one that like died and drew a card, right, in Lord of the Rings. Turned out to be a garbage card. And on an ETB, draw a card, absolutely amazing, right? So you got to take this one with a grain of salt, that, its die trigger is less powerful than an ETB trigger, because your opponent can just leave this alone, or exile it, or pacify it, or, etc. But a 1/1 Flying Vigilance tends to be decent enough, right? So kind of like Fairy Dream Thief, where you were able to play a 1/1. If you can equip this, or if you can put a roll on it, or if you can make it do more damage than 1, you just need to make it into a 2. This does quite well. And Vigilance too is interesting, right? So being able to tap your opponent while also being able to chump block is pretty cool. So I'm gonna give this one a C. I don't think this is gonna be one of the top commons yet, but if it turns out that there's a really good way to like boost the damage of this card and then start hitting for 2 pretty early on, then that would be great, right? So we'll see what the equipment and such looks like But yeah, I mean, and another thing too, right? You just can't pick up like 4 of these because you don't, unless you're hyper aggressive. Generally, you don't have that many 1-drops in your curve. So, all right, Mischievous Pup. Can I type? Yes. Can I spell? Maybe. All right, another uncommon. What are all the commons going to be if these? All right, we've got a 3/1 for 3 flash. Okay, so we've seen this. The rare was a 3/1 flash as well. So, when Mischievous Pup enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target permanent you control to its owner's hand. I like this kind of card. So if you are aggressive, a 3/1 for 3 is not great if there's a lot of hate for X1s, right? Like Rat Out and the one that drew a card and created a treasure. Anyway, so this one kind of depends on that. How easily is this removed? But being able to play other low life creatures, low toughness creatures that are getting targeted and save them, bounce it back to your hand, is pretty decent. So this can fizzle one of your opponent's removals, and then if your card that you're bouncing has an interesting ETB, that's pretty good too. And a lot of the, I'm getting the sense, especially with the dog with the artifact in its mouth, right? Like I'm getting the sense that a lot of the artifacts are going to have interesting ETBs. So worst case scenario is you can flash this in and return one of the artifacts that's already done and enter the battlefield effect, right? So I'm feeling like this one, I'm going to give this one a B. I think it's doing enough that I like it in a lot of different scenarios. The only downside is that it is so incredibly fragile, right? Generally, you want a 3/3 for 3. So I'm going to give this one a B with an asterisk. Not great if there's a whole bunch of X1 hate. Flick a Coin. That was the card I was trying to remember. Oh man, this one's got so much text that I can't... Oh, it's because it's a transform card. Okay. Okay. We got ourselves a mythic. Ladies and gentlemen, we got ourselves our first mythic. Ogre Talk Deepest Foundation. Alright, we've got gods. Alright, so we got 4 double pip white for a mythic legendary god, which is a 6/6 vigilance. If 1 or more creature tokens would be created under your control, 3 times that many of those tokens are created instead. Ha! Take that, Elish Norn. And then when Ogre Talk dies, return it to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control. Oh, I don't like this card at all. I mean, like, I like it, but I don't, right? Like, I don't want to be playing against this because I assume it's good once it transforms. So it flips into a land. Okay. Land that taps for white, and then 2 and a white, transform Temple of Civilization. Activate only if you attacked with 3 or more creatures this turn, and only as a sorcery. So it becomes a land for a little bit. That as long as you attack with 3 or more creatures, you can transform it back into this. Well, at least it doesn't create tokens on its own, right? Like, at least this doesn't create tokens. 6/6 Vigilance. Doesn't do anything on ETB, but does the following turns, kind of a must answer. I'll give this a B. The crafty 1/1 artifact above. Yeah. You could just pump out 3 1/1s each turn. Like, this is definitely going to be one of those cards that, like, you must answer. And then if you do answer it, you're going to kind of have to continue to answer it. I don't know. A B could be undervaluing the god, right? And you can tell here from the price, people are definitely interested in it for constructed purposes. Alright. Trying not to chop off the head of the card here. Alright, Ultec Cloud Guard. Ah, we got another common. Excellent. Alright, so this one's a 3/2 flyer. Both the commons have been flyers in white. Probably a flying archetype in something then. We've got a 3/2 flyer for 4. When Ultec Cloud Guard enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature token. Alright. I'm interested in this. So... so a 3/3 flyer for 4 would be kind of unimpressive, right? And so it's like it's slightly understated, but you're getting a 4/3 worth of stats for 4, and the 3/2 flyer, like, I like the fact that it's a 3/2, not a 2/3, right? So like this is going to push damage pretty well. I think this, I'll give this one a B. I think this one's going to be a common that I'm pretty happy to have when I'm in white. And generally the 2 bodies thing, especially because it's an artifact too, so it gives you artifact synergies, token synergies, evasive flying synergies. Like there's a lot going on here with the Cloud Guard. I like this one a lot. Alright, this one is in a different language, so I don't think this one has been released yet. It is the Autoclan Arc. And Autoclan Arc is a common for 1 white. When it enters the battlefield, scry 2. I like the start of this already. And then it has Craft with Artifact, 2 in a white. Exile it, another artifact in play or in your graveyard. Return this card transformed, craft only as a sorcery. So right now we've got a pretty decent cycler, right? It's a artifact for 1 that scries 2, so it's not quite a draw card, but it's close. And it switches into Autoclan Levitator. And Autoclan Levitator is a 1/4 flyer. When it attacks, target attacking creature without flying gains flying until end of turn. Oh boy. Okay. So Azorius is probably like token artifacts and flying, kind of doing its thing. We've seen it a couple of, so 2 commons that both have flying, and then this common that turns into something with flying for 3. Gives you 1/4, is pretty good defensively, but also the evasion is pretty good offensively. Oh man. I'll give that one a C. It's a B if you're doing the artifact thing, right? But like a 1/4 isn't really going to close the game by itself. And we still have yet to see how the craft thing works out, right? But being able to give something of yours flying has been pretty useful in previous sets. Alright, Petrify. Starting to see some more commons here. Oh, this is, again, in another language. Petrify is a enchantment. Looks like the pacifism of the set. Enchant artifact or creature. Enchanted permanent can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. Oh, okay, so it's an arrest. So, nice. Arrest usually costs 3. So this is a very heavy, whenever you see an arrest for 3, whenever you see an arrest for 2, when you see a really good pacifism, these tend to be somewhere between a B and a C, depending on how much enchantment hate we've seen, right? And so far we haven't really bumped into any enchantment hate specifically, so I'm tempted to start this one out with a B, and then maybe go down on it later after we've seen some more disenchants and stuff. And knowing me, every time that I give the pacifism a C, it turns out to be a B, and every time that I give it a B, it turns out to be a C. So we'll see if that trend continues. Resplendent Angel. Probably spelled resplendent wrong. All right. Ooh, we got ourselves another mythic. All right. Resplendent Angel is a 3/3 flyer for 1 double pip white. And it's not legendary, so you can have multiples for constructed use, right? Oh yeah, okay, so this one's expensive for constructed, I gotcha. At the beginning of each instep, if you gained 5 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. Okay, so we've seen this sort of thing before with angels, where if you gain X amount of life in a specific turn, you get a 4/4 angel token with flying. We haven't seen any lifelinkers. We haven't really seen any things that enable this, but it comes with its own enabler, right? With 3 of anything and 3 white until end of turn, Resplendent Angel gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink. So it itself can make the 4/4 white angel creature token. It's a 3/3 flyer for 3, which is great as long as you're base white. Yeah, alright, I'll give this one an A. This one, this is fine. This one deserves an A, right? An A, like if they don't answer it, and later in the game you can just instant speed, give it +2/+2 and lifelink to make a 4/4. You're paying 6 to get a 4/4 and gain 5 life. Like the game's going to be over pretty quick with that. Ruin Lurker Bat. All right, we got another uncommon here. This one is a 1/1 for 1, another 1/1 flyer for 1. Okay. I'm hearing you, white. Got lots of evasion. And this one's got lifelink. So if you can give this some extra damage, then that's going to be really hard to race. At the beginning of your instep, if you descended this turn, scry 1. Okay. Interesting. So what archetype is doing the descended thing? Because if you get additional scry on this is fine. I'll give this one a B. So this, I would prefer, what did we give the other one? What did we give the flyer? The 1/1 flyer that, what was it called? It was Miner's Guidewing. Yeah, so this is like, this is the better version of Miner's Guidewing. And we gave the Guidewing a C, so feeling about right. Thank you, Warlock. All right. That's the rare symbol. I can't tell what are rares anymore. Like, if I didn't have this rare up here, I wouldn't know. And I guess they have the rare down here too. All right, so we've got Sanguin Evangelist, and this one is number 34 in the set, so I am feeling like we are already missing about 10 cards in white, so I will be revisiting this tomorrow. But Sanguin Evangelist is a 2/1 for 3 with Battle Cry. Whenever this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Okay. And then when it enters the battlefield or dies, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. Interesting. Okay. So 2/1 for 3 is a pretty bad stat, but if you get a 3/2 for 3 across 2 bodies is okay. And then if you're doing the go wide thing, this also creates another 1/1 when it dies. So you're getting a 4/3 worth of stats for 3. And it's like, it's a go wide card that gives the battle cry works with what it's doing. All right, I'm going to give this one a B. I am happy to see that this is rare. Sometimes they put this sort of thing at uncommon, and I think that would have been a mistake. So, hoping you're saying this with Malamet. What card's Malamet? You do exclamation mark. Let's see. Oh, there's too many. Yeah. Well, it's not super high priced for, generally you can tell how well people think a card is going to be for constructed play based off of how expensive the card is. So, okay. Gotcha. Did we already cover that one and my brain is just already gone? Oh, Malamet. War Scribe. Ah, that one. Yeah. All right, that one hasn't. They haven't added it to the MTG bot yet. Okay. Yeah, you're right. So the 3 double pip that. Let's just go back and look at it. Oh wait, no, it's yeah. Okay, here we go. Synergies. You point them out. If you've got things that you think are cool, let me know. So when this enters, creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. Okay, yeah. So the board pump. It also works really well with the god, right? With the Oger Talk being able to create multiple copies of tokens. There's some cool self-contained synergies within white already, which is making me feel like the white's pretty good. So. Because yeah, if you can play this in and it creates 3/1/1 bats, and then give them all +2/+1 later, that's pretty good. So maybe there's a mono white build. Spring-loaded saw blades. Okay, we've got an artifact with flash. One in a uncommon, one and a plains. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 5 damage to target tapped creature and opponent controls. I like these cards. I like these a lot, right? Being able to God and Resplendent gives you 3 angels a turn. That's a good point, Warlock. Yeah, there's some busted stuff there, but like Copen's saying, these are all of the uncommons. These are all the powerhouse cards, so we'll see what the commons bring. All right, so spring-loaded saw blades. I like this sort of thing, right? Dealing 5 damage to target tapped creature and opponent controls is better in a defensive mid-rangey control deck than it is an aggro deck, because as soon as you are the beatdown, they are going to stop attacking and therefore stop having tapped creatures, right? So the more that you're being like, bring it on, hit me, then the better this sort of thing becomes, right? And being able to do this in the craft deck, it comes with craft. So these are all good things, right? Because the craft deck is going to want this sort of removal. I think in general, I'm not particularly excited about the spring-loaded saw blades, so I'm gonna give it a C. But I guess I should see what the other side is, right? But just in general, if you're in the craft strategy, then maybe this is a B. Hey, what's up, Woodfeld? Bill Hype, indeed. Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day. And enjoying the set review for the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Bladewheel Chariot is an uncommon. Oh, this is what it flips into, right? So for 4, you get a 5/5 vehicle with crew 1. Tap 2 other untapped artifacts you control. Bladewheel Chariot becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Interesting. Istar, any legacy playable? I'm primarily a draft player, so we'll be looking at this in the draft context, but there have been a couple of strong rares and mythics. If you go to Scryfall and you look up the cards that have been released and look at their price, generally the more expensive they are, the more legacy playable they are. That's generally how I go off of it. But Bladewheel Chariot, this one's interesting. Why would... So you can tap... Oh, so you can tap 2 untapped artifacts instead of crewing to make this into a creature. Okay. Interesting. So you can tap 2, or just 1 if you have a creature. Okay. That's not bad, right? Vehicles, kind of mid-rangey. I still don't think it's going to make it much better. But yeah, no problem. No problem. I wish I did more constructed some days. Other days, I'm really happy that I don't. That's true, Isaiah. That's true. So, I don't know. I'm not super impressed with the vehicle, but it is going to be something that, like, if I'm doing the craft artifact deck, then I'm going to want more of. Alright, Thousand Moons Smithy. We've got a legendary artifact for 2 double pip white. When Thousand Moons Smithy enters the battlefield, create a white gnome soldier artifact creature token with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of artifacts or creatures you control. Okay, so there's a gnome deck. Very cool. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may tap 5 untapped artifacts and or creatures you control. If you do, transform Thousand Moons Smithy. So when a card transforms, it doesn't leave the battlefield. When a card is crafted, it does. Just something to keep in mind. So this transforms into Barracks of the Thousand, legendary artifact land that taps for white, and whenever you cast an artifact or creature spell using mana produced by Barracks of the Thousand, create a white gnome soldier artifact creature token with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of artifacts and or creatures you control. Okay. Gnomes that are powerful for the artifacts and or creatures you control that then switches into a land that starts popping them out whenever you cast an artifact or creature spell. Ooh, man. Okay, I think this could be pretty good. Yeah, this is you know, you just get something that, like, it just gets bigger and bigger, right? Because it itself is an artifact creature token, and so it'll just continue to grow. This is definitely the kind of card that I'm looking for as a signal, right? This is like, if you pick this up in pack 1, pick 1, and you're like, okay, we're doing the artifact thing. Yeah, I like this one. It's a little slow. It's a little mid-rangey. I'm going to give this a B. I don't think this one's like an A, but I think this is definitely enough to be like, all right, we're doing the thing. So. Isaiah, you're pointing out a good point about the spring-loaded saw blades, is that even if you don't craft with it, it's a thing to be crafted with, right? So I do think maybe a C is a little bit too low, but outside of the craft-specific artifact deck, I'm not really sure that I'm going to like this card. And the other reason why I'm giving this one a B is, even if you're not heavily in the artifact thing, this does have control applications, right? Being able to create a creature every turn can certainly add up. But the floor is a 4-mana 2/2. That is a pretty low floor. So maybe B is too high, maybe it should be a C. But I think it's enough that, like, if I open it up, pack 1, pick 1, I'm like, all right, let's go for it. Let's do the thing, right? Unstableglyph Bridge. Unstableglyph Bridge is a rare artifact for 3 double pip white. So we're seeing a lot of expensive cards in the craft strategy. When Unstableglyph Bridge enters the battlefield, if you cast it, for each player, choose a creature with power 2 or less that that player controls. Then destroy all creatures except creatures chosen this way. Okay. So this can be a one-sided wrath, especially if all of your stuff is artifacts and, like, your crew, right? You're just gonna, like, crew your vehicle in later, so you can just completely wipe everything for 5 this way, and then later you're left with a craftable artifact that switches into Sandswirl Wanderglyph, a 5/3 flyer. Whenever an opponent casts a spell during their turn, they can't attack you or planeswalkers you control this turn. What? And then each opponent who attacked you or a planeswalker you control this turn can't cast spells. So if you spell before combat, you can't attack them, and then if you attack them, you can't spell after combat. This is insane. I don't know if this one's going to be one of the ones that's in, if this was a commander card, or if this one's in the draft set, but a Wrath that turns into a 5/3 flyer that is pretty damn powerful 5/3 flyer? This is disgusting. I'm gonna give this one an A. I mean, generally, I love the Wraths in Limited. If you can cast a Wrath, you generally are a favorite to win. It can be a one-sided board wipe, right? Like, if they don't have anything with power 2 or less, then even if you're left with just that one card, we know that's pretty powerful. So I think this one's going to be fantastic. All right, Vanguard of the Rose. Hey, we got an uncommon here as a 3/1 for 2. So I was wondering how many 3/1 for 2s we were going to see. We've seen a couple of 3/1s for 3, but this is the first 3/1 for 2, I believe. It's got colorless, sacrifice another creature or artifact. Vanguard of the Rose gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. Okay, well, 3/1s are really great on defense because they have a tendency to be able to trade up with like a 4/3. So this can be a really good defensive card, and then it is also a really good tempo card if you're able to play it on turn 2 and then follow it up with cheap removal on turn 3. So I like this going in either direction. I'm going to give this one a B. Saying it's the new Adanto Vanguard, but it's worse than the OG Adanto Vanguard. I'll take your word for it because I don't remember Adanto Vanguard off the top of my head. But we've seen this sort of mechanic before, where being able to threaten indestructible is just pretty awesome. 1/1, as long as a Vanguard is attacking, it gets +2/+0, pay 4 life. Oh, I've seen that in Cube. I think I've played that in like Boros aggro in the Arena Cube. So yeah, that's pretty good. But paying 4 life better than 1 mana, right? For aggro. All right, and we made it to blue, which means I'm going to take the first break of the of the set review and check in real quick to see if Unblinking Bleb ever showed. Yeah, they didn't. Okay, so won't be doing the AC/DC match. I'm going to take a quick little break because if I don't take the breaks, my voice is going to completely tire out. And you need to know? Okay, for you, Isaiah, for you, I will. Okay. Akal Pakal. That's what I would call it. Alright, I'll be right back. So for blue, we've got Akal Pakal, first among equals, which is a rare 1/5 for 3 legendary human advisor. And at the beginning of each player's instep, if an artifact entered the battlefield under your control this turn, look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Ooh. Especially in a set that has payoffs for graveyard stuff. Alright, so blue-white is looking like artifacts. So we got an Azorius Artifacts theme. We got Celestia, which feels like maybe a 3 or less theme. We'll see. Alright, so if we're going to be doing a bunch of tokens and then... This isn't very good if you're in a tempo strategy, since it's a 1/5. But my god, 1/5 really slows things down, right? Yeah. A call has got a pretty big booty. So... gives you additional dig. Or your mid-range... Yeah, it seems pretty decent. I don't think I'm going to go and say that this is, like... amazing? I'm going to give this one... I'm going to give this one a B. I think that it's enough that if I open it up, pack one, pick one, then I'm excited. that I had the opportunity, and I'm going with a specific direction into blue-white. But I don't think it's going to be one of those cards that's just like super stacked, right? You're winning through you're winning through value, which we all know. If you know me, I prefer to win through damage than through value. So, but if the opportunity is there, you know, then it's there. So slows down your opponent's plays, but we saw a lot of evasion, right? Like a 1/5 doesn't really matter if you're playing against a bunch of flyers that are just going to go over the top of you. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that we've seen some good, like the 0/3 for 1, but we've also seen some really good evasion in white. All right, we've got Braided Net, which is a rare. Braided Net enters the battlefield with 3 net counters on it. It's a artifact for 3. And then you can remove a net counter and tap another target non-land permanent. So you can even tap their artifacts. Its activated abilities can't be activated for as long as it remains tapped. But it doesn't remain tapped specifically with this. So, but you can craft it with an artifact to transform it into Braided Quipu? We'll go with Braided Quipu. And Graded Quipu is an artifact that has 3 and an island tap. Draw a card for each artifact you control. Whoa. Then put Braided Quipu into its owner's library 3rd from the top. Okay, so you can only do it once. Kipu? You like Kipu? That's probably correct. Yeah, because of the E for the I. But Quipu just sounds so good, you know? Okay, so you tap their stuff 3 times. And then you get a fair amount of card draw off of this. And then you get to do the tap thing again? Yeah, we all know that correct pronunciation is not my strength. So, it's one of those things that's like, if you choose to be a streamer, then without being able to say words very well, it's a choice, you know? It's definitely a choice. Okay, so for 4, we can pretty easily draw. So like turn 2, tap, turn 3, tap, turn 4, tap, turn 5, tap 4, tap it. What do we need to? What would you need to hit for this to be decent? Draw 3? Because then it also slows, like you're gonna draw it later, and I'm not sure it's like super great. It's not super bad, but you already put 6 mana into it, so I feel like you need to at least draw 3 off of this. I'm gonna give this one a C. I'm not like super excited about this, but maybe I'm really underestimating removing a blocker for 3 turns into card draw. Yeah. It could definitely be what the craft deck is wanting to do. Kipu? Alright, Kipu it is. Thank you, Isaiah. Alright, we've got Chart a Course, which is an uncommon sorcery for 1 of anything in a blue. Draw 2 cards, then discard a card unless you attack this turn. Oh, hell yeah. Divination. Alright, so they made Divination instant, right? So now you get an aggressive Divination, where if you're aggressively attacking them, you get to draw 2 for 2. Oh, is this a reprint? Okay. Yeah, this is pretty awesome. Even if you just draw 2 and discard a card, that's not bad for your early plays, right? As long as you're not just getting like really steamrolled. Oh, it's an OG from from the original IXALAN. Cool. Wow. Okay. Well, so without knowing how Chart a Course did in the previous IXALAN, because I was on a Magic the Gathering break at the time, This is the sort of thing that I like, though. Card draw in blue tends to be the reason to be in blue, and the fact that this can just be straight draw 2 cards for 2 makes me think this should be a B. Key-Poo was also key to the original set. Key? It wasn't just poo. It was leaning towards the key part. Okay, it's good to know. Good to know. Alright, Cogwork Wrestler. A common. Alright, Cogwork Wrestler is a 1/2 flash. 1/2 flash for 1 blue. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-0 until end of turn. Haha! Cogwork Wrestler mid is the answer to 3/1s. Okay, well, I don't like 3/1s all of a sudden. That's interesting. Yeah, those Popeye forearms, you don't want to mess around with that. Dude, I'm liking the Azorius Gnome deck. I assume that like the gnomes are blue-white. It's just it's feeling fun, right? Artifact, blue-white artifacts. This is pretty awesome. It's like you want to keep, well, depending on what the counterspell sitch is, right? But the fact that this trades with the multiple 3/1s that we saw in white, either for 2 or for 3 mana. Obviously, if you're doing this and you are able to snag one of their things, like, it's okay, right? You're at the end of the day, though, you are just left with a 1/2 body, but it is an artifact. So, yeah, a 1/2 flash artifact creature that can eat a 3/1 definitely makes me feel less stoked about the 3/1 stat block in white. But you're going to want to use this in the blue-white craft deck, right? I don't think this is going to be particularly good outside of getting additional value out of it as an artifact. Because like if you use this to remove a 3/1, and then you're left with a 1/2, right? Like that 1/2 isn't really going to be doing much on turn 3 and 4, right? Other than maybe chump blocking an additional time. So I like it though. Generally with blue, you're trying to not do an aggro strategy. You're trying to slow things down and play mid-game or control. So it fits that as long as you can get additional value out of it later. And it does look like there's some like sacrifice and craft stuff in the set that you can do, right? And 1/2s are good in multiple blocks. That's true, right? Like if you get multiples of them, they can soak up a lot of trample damage and such. Yeah, and right, maybe I misspoke. It doesn't trade with a 3/1, it eats a 3/1. And then is around for later. So I like this a lot. I don't think it's a B. I think that it's a C, but it's definitely one of those things that's going to be a format shaping thing. If blue is very common, then you're going to commonly want to anticipate this, and is one of the reasons why, yeah, X1s aren't looking good if this is at common. That's my opinion. All right. Confounding Riddle. It's the most confounding riddle of them all. It's an uncommon. Instant for 3. Choose one. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Or counter target spell unless its controller pays 4. Okay, so it costs 1 more than Impulse, but you can use it as a counter instead of just as an impulse. Oh, it's like Supreme Will. Gotcha. And Convolute, yeah. Well, it's just strictly better than both Supreme Will and Convolute, right? Oh, Supreme Will also lets you do the choose 1. Except for it was pay 3 instead of pay 4. Okay, so it's just power creep on Supreme Will. I feel like that's good. Being able to counter, or if the counter doesn't line up, or is later in the game where they're able to pay the 4, then you can still use this as card draw. Like, just the versatility of which way this can go seems really good. mostly strictly better than Supreme Will. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Yeah, I'll give this one a B. That's an exciting counter spell to have. All right, we've got Council of Echoes, uncommon 4 double pip blue for a 4/4 flyer. Okay, so we're kind of seeing a theme of 6-cost 4/4 flyers in the set. Kind of interesting. Was Air Elemental was a 4/4 flyer for 5, right? This one comes with Descend 4. So I think this is the first Descend card that we've seen. I don't think we saw any in white. So blue's got some Descend stuff. When Council of Echoes enters the battlefield, if there are 4 or more permanents in your graveyard, return up to 1 target non-land permanent other than Council of Echoes to its owner's hand. So a 4/4 flyer for 6 that bounces if you have Descend 4. Oh man, this one's hard to grade in a vacuum because I haven't really seen what enables Descend 4 yet, right? Like there's some Explore cards. Would you be able to get 4 in the graveyard by turn 6? Because like we've seen bounce spells that are also creatures are just huge tempo swings. Yeah, so this one's like once we play the set, we'll have a better understanding, and this is something that I'd keep an eye out during the streamer access event. Is how well do the archetypes actually work, right? And if you're able to self-mill and get Descend 4 pretty reliably by turn 6, which is how I'm going to grade this card, is assuming that the Descend mechanic works out and there isn't just a whole bunch of graveyard hate. How do I feel about a 4/4 flyer for 6 that bounces a non-land permanent back to its owner's hand? I feel pretty good about that. Yeah, it's definitely... You can't have too many 6-drops in your deck. Waterlogged Hulk. Might be the business as an enabler. Waterlogged Grove is what it brought up. I don't know if we have the Waterlogged Hulk yet. It's a 1-mana uncommon in blue. Okay, well, we'll get to it then. When we get to W, very last bit of the blue list. Okay, I'm gonna give this one a B. I think that like it's a good finisher for mid-range control, and yeah, it could be a good tempo card too if the blue-white deck turns out to be kind of a tempo strategy. Being able to bounce your opponent's stuff is just pretty good on turn 6, right? It might be a little bit high. I've got my doubts about the Descend mechanic and whether or not it's got enough enable for it. Since we haven't really seen much in white that has enabled it yet. Alright, Deeproot Pilgrimage. Whenever 1 or more non-token merfolk you control become tapped, create a 1/1 blue merfolk creature token with hexproof. Oh god. Someone's gonna do some silly stuff with this in Constructed. Whenever 1 or more non-token merfolk you control become tapped. It's been a while since we've had a merfolk deck in Standard, right? Maybe I'm just getting bad flashbacks to when merfolk decks reigned supreme. Because like I hate hexproof as a keyword. And if you just tap a merfolk, you get the token each turn. That's disgusting. But you would need it's an A+B mechanic, right? You need to have. This is not good in limited, right? But yeah, this sort of thing, intruder alarm, infinite combo kind of thing, right? Like I feel like this one's gonna do silly stuff in Constructed, and maybe there's enough merfolk in the set to get this to work. But I'm gonna give this one a D, assuming that merfolk aren't just ubiquitous, because we've seen more like gnomes and such so far. But yeah, I think that one is gonna be doing some silly stuff in Standard. Alright, we've got Didact Echo, which is a 3/2 flyer for 5, common. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Oh, dude, I like that. Okay, so one of the problems with the common enter the battlefield, draw a card is that they were early on, right? I like this as a 5-drop draw card because it at least gives you, like, aggro a chance to get in, right? Like, but if you're doing the mid-range control thing, and this is the sort of thing that you want to do, right? Like, it's card neutral. And hey, Dennis Kornick, thank you for checking out my YouTube. Appreciate you. All right, and then it has Descend 4. It has Flying as oh, I thought I had Flying at the beginning just because of the picture. It has Flying as long as there are 4 more creatures in your or permanents in your graveyard. Wow. All right, I'm gonna give this one a C. I think that it's tricky, right? Because you're not gonna want this in every deck, right? There are gonna be some decks where this is just garbage, but as long as you can actually play it as a 3/2 flyer that draws a card, I think it's okay. Just because that's how valuable drawing a card is in mid-range or control strategies. Yeah, and as Isaiah is pointing out, it depends on how much efficient removal there is for X2s. So if you play this and there's a shock, like, it doesn't really matter that you're up hard, but at least you're up a card, right? But it just depends on whether or not the game has gone on long enough where the mana lost is a matter. Yeah, so if you're trading 5 mana for 1, you better be on turn 10, right? If you're doing this on turn 5 and trying to, like, restabilize, it's not particularly good. So this is definitely one of those cards that, like, you'll want in mid-range or control, and only if you're pretty confident that you're not going to need this to swing you back into your favor, right? So maybe a C is a little bit too high. But I'm going to give it a C to start out with. Anytime that I see draw cards, if it has draw card in his card neutral, like, that's enough for me to be like, all right, I'm going to be putting it in some decks. And wow, okay, so this one is probably not released yet, which is why it's so janky looking. So Frilled Cave Worm is a common, and it is a 2/5 Salamander Worm for 4 with Descend 4. It gets +2/+0 as long as you have the 4 permanents. So sucks if you don't have Descend, and then if you do have Descend, it's a 4/5 for 4. This was spoiled digitally instead of paper. It's just a bad MTGA render. Gotcha. This is giving me really good vibes for, like, the story and the flavor of going down into the caverns of Ixalan, because Cave Worms is just, like, classic, right? I'm a little bit disappointed, though, because by turn 4, the likelihood of actually having Descended is pretty low. So most of the time you're playing this as a 2/5 for 4, and I think that's just too slow. So I'm going to give this one a D, but that could change if we see some decent self-mill. Shadow Scythe, you're a sucker for big-looking blue creatures? Yeah, you know, this one ticks, checks that box for sure. All right. Well, apparently there's a 1 mana cost enabler that's going to make me feel okay about self-mill, though we're yet to get to it. Hermitic Nautilus. God, Nautilus. I can't spell. Okay. Uncommon. 1/4 for 2. So lots of big booties in this set. We've seen 1/5s, 1/4s. A lot of thick defending cards, which might slow down the aggression of certain dinosaurs. We shall see. So 1/4 vigilance, and then you can tap 1 in a blue, and it gets +3/-3 until end of turn. So you can switch this into a 4/1, which cool flavor for a snail, right? Being able to, like, put the defenses down and stab them with your little poison dart or whatever. And you can kill it by doing it multiple times if you haven't upped its toughness, right? But being able to hit for 4 and then have a 1/4 back on defense is pretty good, as long as there isn't a lot of instant speed hate for X1s, right? Because switching this one into a 4/1 and then having it be removed after you sunk the 2 mana into it is pretty bad. So similarly to what we saw in March of the Machines, where we had those double-faced cards, this one's, be careful about paying this into open mana, right? Otherwise it's going to be fine, right? You get a 1/4 vigilance that's going to gum up the board nicely, and it's an artifact, so it has the additional artifact synergies. And then it can hit pretty hard for a tempo-based strategy, or just gum up the ground while you're attacking him with flyers. I'm going to give this one a B. Might be too high, but I like that stat block. I like what it's doing. Okay. Hurl into history. Just a quick check here. We're 19 cards behind, so there will definitely be some stuff I have to cover tomorrow that's in these colors. But I'm trying to do my review earlier because YouTube pays people like it when you're the first one to cover something. So we're trying to be like the first ones to cover this stuff, right? So Hurl into History is a 3-cost double white or double blue instant. Counter target artifact or creature spell and discover X, where X is that spell's mana value. And discover is one of the new mechanics in the set. You exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with that mana value or less, and then cast it without paying its mana cost, or put it into your hand. So you can choose. If you don't want to do it now, you can just put it into your hand for later. And then you put the rest that were revealed or exiled back onto the bottom of your library in a random order. So 5-cost counterspell that is card neutral. These have varied depending on the speed of the format, right? We saw like the Convoke 6-cost spell in March of the Machine did quite well, and that one was card neutral, or it triggered a draw, like you would draw 2 and then discard or something like that, and that was good enough. But it had Convoke, right? So if you're up against a bunch of aggro, you're just going to get steamrolled before you can do this. But if you're in a mid-range match against another mid-range player or another control player, then this is the sort of thing that's pretty good. But control tends to want to tends to already be doing that pretty well, with its just general theme of, oh, you paid a 6-drop, I play a counterspell for 2, right? So I think this one, I'm going to give this one a C. I think that the card neutrality of Discover, this could be a blowout, right? You could counter something and get something really nice from your deck, but you could also hit a 1-drop, right? It just has to be less than X, so it's not guaranteed to hit X. So I think the Discover mechanic is a little squiffy and kind of difficult for building your deck around, specifically in Limited. But it's a counterspell at the end of the day, so if you're in hard control, then you'll probably want it. All right. Iceberg Invertido. Inverted Iceberg. We got a 1 and a blue for an artifact. When Inverted Iceberg enters the battlefield, mill a card, then draw a card. Okay. So this sort of thing, it gives me a little bit more hope that maybe we can descend quickly. And then we got a really expensive craft with artifact 4 double pip blue, and it turns into Iceberg Titan, which is whenever Iceberg Titan attacks, you may tap or untap target artifact or creature. Okay, well, so it's a 6/6 for 6. Craft means it will have Summoning Sickness, though, because it has to, like, go away and then come back, right? So you can't flip this and immediately attack, which I think is going to lower the efficacy of Craft just in general, or slow it down, I should say. But a 6/6 that whenever you attack, you get to tap something of theirs can be really good if you've controlled them into a relatively small board state. Obviously, if they have a whole bunch of just, like, 1/1s or whatever, This sucks just to get chumped. But I think it's good craft material, right? Like it's something that you can craft with or use to craft. I think I'll probably end up using this to craft more often than actually crafting with it. But it starts helping you get the Descended going, because card neutral gives you that artifact fodder. I'll give this one a C. Am I going to be happy about playing this in multiple archetypes? I think I will, because it's good for Descend, it's good for artifact synergies. So maybe it's a D. So really, like, give it a C minus. All right, Kite Sail, Larcenist. We got ourselves a rare. Okay, so this one's a pirate. Oh boy, we got some pirates. 2/3 for 3, rare pirate, which is a flying creature with ward 1. I like this already. I tend to be a fan of Wind Drakes, even when they're not good. The 2/2 flyer for 3 is okay in my book. When Kite Sail Larcenist enters the battlefield, for each player, choose up to one other target artifact or creature that player controls. For as long as Kite Sail Larcenist remains on the battlefield, the chosen permanent becomes... the chosen permanents become treasure artifacts that can sacrifice this artifact, and they lose all other abilities. Well, that's kind of cool. You can turn your artifact into a treasure after it's done its useful ETB with, like, the card we just looked at, the inverted iceberg, which I put in there as the Spanish name. So I like that. And then if they have a really problematic artifact across the field, you can make it just turn into a treasure token. And a 2/3 flyer for 3 with ward 1 is a decent enough stat block that I'll give this one a B. Happy to see that one, sure. All right. Lodestone Needle. Lodestone Needle is an uncommon artifact for 2. Lots of artifacts for 2. Okay. Flash. Oh, I like that. Because in blue, you can hold up the counterspell, and then if they don't play the counterspell, you can flash in the artifact. When Lodestone Needle enters the battlefield, tap up to one target artifact or creature and put 2 stun counters on it. Ah, okay. Yeah, I like that in tempo, and it's kind of not great in hard control where you'd rather just remove the creature. But as long as you're pressuring your opponent well, I've liked this sort of thing in the past. And we get to craft it for 3 with an artifact to turn it into Guidestone Compass, which has 1 colorless, tap it, target creature you control explores. Activate only as a sorcery. Ooh. Okay, so that's either a tap 1 and tap it for a +1/+1 counter or lands. So kind of later in the game, you don't want to be hitting the lands, but I guess that's a good way to get them off the top of your library and into your hand. Okay, so... And the Explore thing kind of works with Descended well enough. Removal... 2 stun counters on it means that you can take something out, because it has Flash. So you can take it out the turn, and then 2 more. Takes removal for 3? Yeah, and I haven't had the opportunity to play with Explore. I know it's a returning mechanic, but yeah, being able to get info of, like, this is the next card that I'm going to draw. So you get +1/+1, and then, like, you can put it back on your deck if it's something that you do want. And if it's something you don't want, it just helps you improves your card draw, right? Like, I think that's pretty good. So, and it's got the artifact synergies, and it's removal for 3 turns. Yeah, I'm gonna give this one a B. I think that maybe that's a little high, but I think that, like, it's something that fits the mid-range strategy well enough to smooth the top end of your library, and then it's an artifact, right? So if it's completely disgusting, you can just get rid of it. The Explore mechanic is better than it sounds. And you can always bin it. Yeah, exactly. Cool. Generally, anything that smooths your draws turn 5 and onward is pretty nice, right? That's why I really liked the Archive Dragon in Wilds of Eldraine, because there were so many games where I would scry 2 and put 2 lands into the bottom of my library on turn 6, and it helped me just continue to find my late game threats, right? So like Explorer is that same kind of energy where it's like, my 6-drop, I will leave it on top of the deck. Not my 6-drop? Okay, I'm throwing it into the graveyard. Or if it's a land, I'm drawing it into my hand so that I can speed up finding my gas mid-range to late. Malcolm, Alluring Scoundrel. We've got a rare, legendary Siren Pirate. Ooh, nice. Flash Flyer for 2. Whenever Malcolm, Alluring Scoundrel deals combat damage to a player, put a chorus counter on it. Draw a card, then discard a card. If there are 4 or more chorus counters on Malcolm, you may cast the discarded card without paying its mana cost. What? Well, I like it as a 2/1 Flash Flyer for 2. Let's start there. And then it's a looter. It's gonna loot every time that it connects as a flyer. And then after the 4th time you've done it, you just get a free card. The ceiling is great. And the floor is great. Yeah, this is all around great. All right, I'm gonna give this one an A. It's probably not actually impactful enough for it to be truly an A, but like I love everything about this card. You're putting this guy in your tier fun pirate deck. Yeah, this one, it's got some. I mean, I love the pirate synergies. So we haven't seen what the pirate deck is yet, right? We didn't see any pirates in white. So treasure, blue-red pirates, right? Is it pirates? It's not going to be Simic or it's not going to be Dimir pirates. Maybe it's Dimir pirates, but probably blue-red. Yeah, how's your day going, Thunder? The flash sets it over the top. Yeah, I agree. Being able to, because like being able to flash this in at the end of your opponent's turn, and pretty much sets yourself up for like getting at least 1 free loot off of it, which is pretty damn good. Yeah, well, everybody has their own spectrum of grades, right, Isaiah? I tend to give out more A's than it just like S. What you're talking about would be an S tier, right? Like it has to just win you the game for it to be an S. You don't like the grade system in general? That's fair. I'm trying to go like the way that I like to look at it is later, like how Circovitz does, where you go back and you look at a win rate. And going like, okay, well, how many standard deviations are you above or below the win rate for the card compared to the populace in general, right? And you'll always have cards that stand out, right? Like Gruff Triplets, right, is several standard deviations above the average for game in hand win rate. And so that's kind of what I like to use as how close was I as the set goes on, right? And so it's kind of like, if I'm going to say it's an A, it's not necessarily it's a game-winning bomb. It's just that in the decks that do have Malcolm, you're going to see a significant improvement when this card is drawn, right? Or I guess when this card is in hand. Yeah, and if it does the final thing, if you do actually get the 4 chorus counters on this thing can end the game. Giving a card a grade is reductive. That's true. Yeah. And like getting a D doesn't mean the card is unplayable, right? Yeah, and it does gloss over some of the nuance of limited play. I'll give you that, right? Because like if you never play a card that is below average on 17 lands, what 17 lands data does is it says that it's good in the majority of situations, right? 90% of the time the populace was able to figure out how to play this card. But there are definitely outliers, right? Where like a lot of build arounds will get a D as a grade because, I mean, part of this is just to try to help people who are new to limited in general and be like, hey, you know, get some more reps in before you try doing a build around strategy. So yeah, exactly. First couple of times, right? And just for your own like card evaluation and speculation, I like to see like how close I was. But I would feel really bad if nobody ever played a card because I gave it a D, right? Like, part of it is the exploration, right? Part of it is figuring out what, like, that's what makes limited fun, is what you can do, right? You have a creative space in which to work with. So these are just all just general, like, for helping me orient to the set, helping my viewers orient to the set and understand where I'm coming from. And you weren't trying to delegitimize your work here. I didn't take it that way. I thought it was just a good time to take a little break and talk about it, though. So, about the overall goal, right? You're here for the discussion, yeah. And that's the more important part than the letter grade, for sure. Is like, what does this make you excited to do? And what, you know, like, especially once we've gone through all of them, then there can be more in-depth discussion about what approach you're going to be taking in pack 1 and etc. Like what you feel like the pace of the set is going to be and all that. So, Merfolk Cave Diver. Okay, so this is the first Merfolk that we've seen, I think, unless I mean, it's the first one that stands out, right? Whenever a creature you control explores, Merfolk Cave Diver gets +1/+0 until end of turn and can't be blocked this turn. Okay, so as long as you have a repeatable Explore trigger, then this is a 3/4 or 3 that can't be blocked. And it itself, that's not bad. Thunder, you're saying that this is terrible? Man, I don't know if I could say that this is terrible. It really depends on how many enablers you have for exploration. Right? Because as a 2/4 for 3, that's not a terrible stat block for mid-range and control, right? It blocks all the 3/1s in the set. It sucks if you're trying to close the game out, though, right? It's a very defensive card. But the fact that it then switches into something that's, you know, so if you trigger exploration, then this can become a 4/6 creature that can't be blocked. That's not bad. Yeah, it really depends on the stats of the set and how aggressive the set is. But like, this is playable, especially if there's a cheap exploration. Yeah, but it is an A+B card, you're right. When a creature you control explores, it requires that exploration trigger. So, like you're saying, in an LTR, the Scry unblockable was doable if you got enough Scry in your deck. Yeah, I'm going to give this one a D. I think this one's a sideboard card that you bring in best of 3 against like a really aggro strategy. When you are desperately trying to survive the beatdown. And maybe it goes up in value if you have enough exploration in your deck. Yeah, I agree. All right, we got Ogre Patique, Deepest Epic. Wow, what a name! All right, we got a mythic rare here, 2 and double pip blue for a 4/3 flyer. Whenever you cast an instant spell from your hand, it gains Rebound. Oh, cool. It's fun. Rebound, exile it as it resolves. At the beginning of your next upkeep, you may cast it from exile without paying its mana cost. So your spells don't quite get Storm, but they get a delayed Storm. And 4/3 flyer for 4 is a decent stat block. And then when it dies, return it to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control with 3 time counters on it. Okay, so we see another god. So we've got a white god and a blue god. And the gods look like they'd all turn into lands. So the blue one turns into a land that taps for blue, remove a time counter from Temple of Cyclical Time. Nice that you can just do this without mana burn in Modern Magic. And then you can tap 3 and tap it to transform the temple, activate only if there are no time counters on it, and only as a sorcery. So you have to tap it 3 times before it gets to come back. But this is another one, just like the other god. I'm gonna give this one a B. It has to be answered, or you can just get way too much value out of this. Oh, sorry, you need to tap it 4 times. Oh, because it becomes tapped. I thought it came in untapped. So, yeah. So you're looking at it's tapped. So then 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you're looking at like 4 or 5 turns to get it back, right? 4 turns. 4 turns to get it back. Yeah. Huh, I'd still play it. The 4/3 for 4 that gives me rebound. Yeah, so the turn that it dies, it transforms tapped. 1 turn. You could call that turn 0, right? But let's call it turn 1. And then turn 2, 3, and 4 are just removing the time counters. So then turn 5 is when you can flip it. Unless you're counting the turn that it transformed as turn 0. Then it would be 4 turns. But anyway, decent enough card. It just as a 4/3 flyer for 4, right? Like, it's okay. Alright, we got Self-Reflection. Create a token that... My vocal inflection on that one was weird. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. And then it's got Flashback for 4. So this one's a really good one to mill. Right? If you're doing the Descend thing, because it's better as a flashback than it is actually casting it out of your hand. And is just as good as whatever you can create a copy of. The only downside is that you can't copy your opponent's stuff. So it has to be stuff that you have. So I'm gonna give this one a D, because you need to get it into the graveyard, and I still haven't really seen anything that makes me feel like that's particularly good. But if you can realistically get this into the graveyard, then being able to copy something for 4 at sorcery speed is alright. Not amazing, but alright. And you can't target legendaries, right? It has to be a non-legendary. So I didn't pay attention to how many creatures in the set are legendaries, but that's another issue. It doesn't have the text that says if it's a non-legendary, or if it's a legendary, don't pay attention to that rule. Okay, so how do you say this? Sinuous? Sinuous Binthisar? When Sinuous Binthisar, which is a uncommon for 6, a 4/4 for 6, when it enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of caves you control. Okay, so first time second cave card we've seen, where X is the number of caves you control plus the number of cave cards in your graveyard. Put 2 of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You just went and reread the Green God again. It puts the creature into play. It probably flips back like right away. Ooh, okay, so the green one's got the A, huh? Spoilers! I haven't got to that yet. We're going to cover that one tomorrow. Alright, Sinuous Binthisar. I don't like this at all. Right? A plus B card. X is the number of caves you control. If you don't have any caves, then this doesn't do anything. It's just a 4/4 for 6. Not excited about this one. It is a dinosaur, though. But yeah, I think I can give this one like a D. I'm not super excited about it. I guess if you have cave synergies, it's okay. I just keep reading it, wanting it to... I want it to be X plus 1 or something, right? I want it to do something even if we don't have caves. But that is not happening. Okay. Song of Stupefaction. I was going to say Stupefaction. Song of Stupefaction is 1 and a blue for an enchantment. Enchant creature or vehicle. When it enters the battlefield, you may mill 2 cards. Okay, so we're seeing a little bit of mill. Fathomless Descent. Enchanted creature gets -X, -0, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. All right. It gets the permanent cards into your graveyard, hopefully. This one seems to be... I'm going to give this one a D. Like, you're going to want it if you're doing the self-mill thing, but if you do this on 2 and you end up getting like a double land on your 2 milled cards, you give -0/-0 is just a turn off, right? And notably, they usually have flash. Yeah, so the fact that this is missing flash is unfortunate. But we have desperately been needing things for Descended. So maybe they made it worse on purpose because they didn't want Descended to be good. Or busted, I should say. But I think I'm feeling kind of like Descended isn't great yet, but we haven't seen everything yet. All right, Spyglass Siren is a 1/1 flyer. Okay, so we have 3 1/1 flyers so far, I think, for 1. So lots of 1/1 flyers. Okay, so I'm just gonna do blue-white flyers and do board pumps with evasive flyers. I think that's looking pretty okay. When Spyglass Siren enters the battlefield, create a map token. Oh, cool. So you get 2 cards in 1. The Explorer, artifact synergies. It's a pirate, so you're going to want this in blue-red, blue-white, blue-green. I still haven't figured out what blue-green is about. And if you're doing the Explorer thing with blue-black, blue-black feels like Descend. So... that works for 3 out of 4 for blue. That's pretty good. I'm gonna give that one a C. I'm gonna give that one a C. I don't think it's as strong as the lifelink one. That's a good point, Copen. All these cheap flyers make a 2/1 flash flyer worse. However, we've only seen 1 common 1/1 flyer, right? Hey, what's up, Bubbles? Yeah, I mean, a 1/1 flyer for 1 that creates a map token is probably better than a C. It's probably somewhere between a C and a B. You think a C is too low? Oh, because if you hit the non-land with the exploration, it's a 2/2 flyer, and it gives you 2 cards. Yeah, I mean, with like rectangle theory, I could see that being a B. That's an interesting point. I guess it's a fair amount of what things are trying to do. I was just trying to think, like, in comparison to the white uncommon had vigilance and lifelink, whereas this creates a map token, and I feel like this is worse than the uncommon. It's an uncommon, yeah, it's not a common. Yeah, don't follow the set symbol because it's impossible with to tell. Look in the bottom left, like for the U. No, it does. It enables Descend strategy. It does the exploration strategy. It's a flyer for blue-white. It's a pirate for blue-red. Sure, I'll give it a B. Yeah, it's hard to say without playing how good the map tokens are going to be. Because, like, yeah, if you sacrifice that for value in the blue-white artifact deck, you know, then that gives it some additional chutzpah as well. All right, we got Staunch Crewmate. Staunch Crewmate is an uncommon 2/1 for 2. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact or pirate card from among them. Okay, so the pirate deck is also caring about artifacts. Or maybe just so that it's in different ones. But put it into your hand, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. As long as you have a critical amount of artifact or pirate cards. I'm curious to hear Sirkovitz's breakdown of how many you should be running on this one. So, card neutral 2/1 for 2, though, I like. And but we have seen we've seen some 1/4s and 1/3s and 1/5s and whatnot, so like it doesn't necessarily push through very well. Yeah, so as long as you have a critical amount, then this can move up. Otherwise, I think it's just a B. If you're heavily into artifacts or pirates, then this goes up in value. Alright. Subterranean Schooner. Whenever Subterranean Schooner attacks, we get a vehicle. We get a 3/4 vehicle for 2. Rare. Whenever it attacks target creature that crewed it, this turn explores. With a crew of 1? Yeah, baby. Oh man, I like this. And then that thing that you use to crew the schooner grows, and you get more exploration. Yeah, I think the pirate one is looking pretty funny. Or pretty fun. I agree, Copen. Yeah, the schooner here. I like this. I like this one a lot. All right, so this is what we were talking about, like with how good there were with explorations, right? So you play this on 2, and you play something on 3, and then on 4 you play the 2/4. Was the 2/4 a 4 or a 3 cost? And then you use that to explore, and then you can start hitting in with the 3/4 unblockable. Not bad. It's not bad. There's some interesting explorer lines there, and then you're smoothing. So I wonder if the explorer is going to be kind of tempo. I wonder if it's going to give you, it's going to come out as kind of like a good tempo strategy. We'll see. Yeah, so crew 1 vehicles that are this like do something every time that it's crewed, man. I like this. I'm going to give this one an A. That might be too high for an A, but I see this and I go, okay, I want to go into the explorer archetype, right? Like whatever is benefiting from doing an exploration every turn is, I'm gonna pick this up, pack 1, pick 1, and be like, okay, let's try that, right? So I'm gonna give this one an A. That might be too high, but this is definitely like one of those signpost rares that will put me into an archetype, pack 1, pick 1, and I think it's pack 1, pick 1-able. Seems decent enough. So we'll see. All right, now this one is the card that has received some hype, right? We've got the Enigma Jewel, which, we got a mythic here, so constructed. Get ready. The Enigma Jewel is a legendary artifact for 1 blue, and when it enters the battlefield tapped, and you can tap to add 2 colorless, spend this mana only to activate abilities. But the thing that's got people excited is the craft. The craft is insanely expensive though, so we're looking at it like a constructed card, in my opinion. But craft with 4 or more non-lands with activated abilities for 9. You exile this, and then it turns into the Locus of Enlightenment. And it has each of the activated abilities of the exiled cards used to craft it. So all of the planeswalkers that you exiled with it, it now has the planeswalker abilities, right? And you may activate each of those abilities only once each turn. So you can do 1 from each card, right? So I think that this has got some people really excited. We haven't really seen a whole lot of activated abilities yet for its play. So I think in limited it's not going to be particularly good, because 9 is just absurd. Oh, one for 1 of each ability, not 1 from each card. Oh, so you could do each of the Planeswalker's abilities? So you could do all 3 of an exiled Planeswalker ability? Damn. Okay, well if that's true, then an exiled Planeswalker you get to do all 3? Regardless, some cool stuff with this card, not for limited. Whenever you activate an ability that isn't a mana ability, copy it, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So not only do you get to do every single ability of each ability, you may activate each of those abilities only once each turn. Yeah, and then they get copied as well. So you get it is a win. It's a win condition for constructed. I think it's absolute garbage for limited, and I'm going to give it an F. might be a little bit too crazy, but whenever I see anything, even 8 would be like too much for me. So I guess this pays 2 of it, right? I wonder, does craft count as an activated ability? I wonder if it was, yeah, it should, right? Because your craft is activated here with the cost and you're paying for it. So if you have a whole bunch of artifacts in the blue-white deck, and you tap this, and then you only need to come up with 7 mana, and then you need the build around of what you're exiling to help you win the game, though, this is a constructed card. Oh, it wouldn't have the loyalty abilities of Planeswalkers. But you could uptick it, right? You could at least do the plus version of Planeswalker abilities. I don't know. Somebody's going to do something silly and constructed with that card, and we all know it. The Ever-Flowing Well. Alright, when the Ever-Flowing Well enters the battlefield, mill 2 cards, then draw 2 cards. Love that. Love that a lot. Okay, legendary artifact rare for 3 with Descend 8. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, transform the Ever-Flowing Well, which also has amazing art. Waterfall, snake waterfalls, always a win in my book. And this one switches into a legendary artifact land that can tap for blue. Whenever you cast a permanent spell using mana produced by the Myriad Pools, up to 1 other target permanent you control becomes a copy of that spell until end of turn. Okay, so it like duplicates the artifacts that you're playing. Interesting. I mean, I like it just for the front side, right? A draw 2 that mills 2, divinate, leaves behind a legendary artifact for later. Gets you 2 towards the Descend 8, and then whenever you cast a permanent spell using mana, up to 1 other target permanent you control becomes a copy of that spell until end of turn. So you can make, oh, okay, I got you. You make something that's already on the battlefield into a copy of whatever you're playing. And you can make your maps into creatures. Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think I'll play that in most blue decks. I don't think it's just like, oh, absolutely amazing. I'm going to give it a B. Just because I still feel nervous about how easy Descend is, right? And this is just divination with mill. If it's not descending, so maybe B's a little bit too high, but alright, Tishana's Tidebinder. This one we've got a 3/2 for 3. Worst stat block in Magic the Gathering. But it has flash. So we get a 3/2 for 3. It's a merfolk. It's a rare. When Tidebinder enters the battlefield, counter up to 1 target activated or triggered ability. And if an ability of an artifact, creature, or planeswalker is countered this way, that permanent loses all abilities for as long as Tidebinder remains on the battlefield. Ooh. Yeah, you're right. The divination does produce mana later. That's true. That's decent. And those things that do generate, like, eventually flip into something that generate can ramp mana, right? Like, so you can end up getting 2 sources of mana, which has happened several times in this set. Okay, so being able to counter an activated ability, I like. Because a lot of times it catches your opponent off guard, because most counter spells can't affect abilities. And then if it is an ability that is really important, you can shut it down for the rest of the game. So like if somebody's doing the exploration thing and you need to just shut down that, right? Just being able to remove that forever is pretty decent. Yeah, I think I'll give this one a B. Or we'll see. maybe there's not a whole lot of activated abilities that this is really great to hit, and then it's just a 3/2/3. But yeah, no. So it is an activated or ability with craft, right? So like if somebody goes for a mega big craft and then you counter this, that thing's gone, man, because you had to be exiled to do it. Flash 3/2 is like a C-. Yeah, but if you're playing this out as a 3, maybe even worse than a C-, Isaiah. I hate 3/2. Yeah, the stat block sucks, right? It does depend on the average stats of the set, but usually 3/2 is garbo. Yeah, because it trades with a 2/1, right? If like it trades with a Savannah Alliance, it's not going to be. It's not particularly good. But if you can counter a craft with this, then it has potential for uber blowout. Yeah, exactly. No, if you're killing hill giants with it, then go for it, right? But we haven't seen a whole lot of 3/3 stat blocks. Hey, and we made it to the card. Waterlogged Hulk. This is the one that we heard tale about at the beginning of Blue. Waterlogged Hulk is a artifact for 1 that has tap, mill a card. Yeah, baby. Let's go. Oh man, it's not common? Oh, why didn't they make this at common? Give me hope and put this at common. Uncommon makes me sad. Yeah, I mean, in a control deck too, you can just mill your opponent. Oh, and then so it had craft. Excuse me. Craft with an island though, so if you mill a land, you can get rid of that island. That's interesting. And then you get a 4/4 vigilance that has descend 8. Watertight Gondola can't be blocked as long as there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard. So you get an unblockable vigilance vehicle. That's kind of cool. And oh, you can't mill an opponent? Oh, you're right. I misread that. It's mill a card. So just only self-mill. Thank you. Yeah, this is why I like doing this with chat, is you guys will point out where I get something wrong. And that's decent for 1 for 4 unblockable damage, and then you got a 4/4 blocker. And you do this on turn 1. It's a great enabler. It's going to be critical to have this uncommon if you want to do the descend strategies. So, and you can do it because it's an artifact. It's not an artifact creature. You can immediately mill cards on turn 1. So you need to send 8 though. So like, you don't get the unblockable until pretty late in the game. But I feel like the descend strategies, there's no aggro descend. There's aggro descended, but the descend ones tend to be like these mid-range to control strategies. And I love self-mill because like self-mill is just more information. So far, and we haven't seen anything that's really punishing where your opponent could respawn and then mill you out of the game, right? So I do see though why, like, I do see why this isn't common. I still think it's relatively slow enough that this could have been common. I'm gonna give it a C. I'm gonna give it a C in the sense that, like, if you're not doing the descended thing, you're not really looking for self-mill. And then this is just really slow otherwise. So I think that there's going to be an archetype that wants the waterlogged Hulk, but it's not going to be every blue deck. All right, we got Waterwind Scout, which is a 2/2 flyer for 3. Ah, Windrake, my homie. When Waterwind Scout enters the battlefield, create a map token. Okay, so we've got a 1/1 flyer on 1 that creates a map token at uncommon. And then we've got a 2/2 that creates a map token on 3. Interesting. Alright, I like it. I'm going to give this one a C. I believe in Windrakes. Maybe I shouldn't, because it is 2023, and wind drakes tend to be a little under impressive. But if you're going to be playing Windrake, I imagine you're going to be playing it in a deck that wants to play Windrake, right? This is a common. This is a common. Most of what we have covered has been uncommons. And I was saying there's a 1/1 for 1 that creates a map token at uncommon. This one is a 2/2 at 3 that creates a map token at common. Maybe I misspoke. But yeah, I was just in comparison. So we've got these flyers that are making making map tokens in blue, right? And they're merfolk, right? I don't know if the other one was. The other one was a pirate. But I feel like this is going to be a cornerstone for the deck that's doing the exploration, and then other than that, it's not going to be particularly good, right? I mean, like, probably is like a D, but I'm gonna give it a C because I like Windrakes. Yeah, Windrake with benefits, exactly. Zoetic Glyph. All right. Zoetic Glyph is an uncommon, which, by the way, right, like, I'm having a very difficult time telling these apart, just because it is a lot of black ink. So this set, it's kind of tricky to figure out which ones are uncommons and uncommons. The bottom left here has that little U, and that's really like the saving grace. All right, so Zoetic Glyph is an enchantment for 3. Enchanted artifact is a golem with 5/4 power and toughness. And then when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, discover 3. Pardon my yawns. Okay, so we've seen this sort of thing before. Sort of, right? But this card really needs to draw a card, right? Like, if you tapped 3 and you made something into a 5/4 and then you drew a card, it would be insane. But without that, like, you're playing a map token, you make a 5/4 that can attack the turn that it's made into a golem. I don't know, 5/4 with early enablers for map tokens, and then if they kill the 5/4, it triggers a discover 3. So discover 3 is sort of like a draw, but it's limited. Your draw has to be a non-land permanent that costs 3 or less. So it's not a draw unless your deck is like, unless that's the thing that you're doing, right? And you can always hit a 1-drop, right? It's not guaranteed to be a 3. It's 3 or less. So the discover mechanic kind of feels squiffy, right? But if we have enough creatures that create map tokens and such on turns 1 and 2, then you're looking at a 5/4 haste on turn 3. Yeah, and then on turn 4, you're not really interested in hitting lands anyway, so the discover might be better than a draw. I'm not sure I would say that it's definitely better than a draw, because it can't hit your 4-drops and your 5-drops, right? Like, it limits your tempo a little bit. But I guess it is better than hitting a land. Yeah, you don't have to cast the draw, though. You can just put it into your hand. I mean, if you don't have a whole lot of 1, 2, and 3, then your deck's in trouble anyway. Yeah, and like, it depends on if you need to curve out into your 4 and 5 drops, or if you're like pressuring. It's good in a tempo deck, right? Don't get me wrong. Like, if you're maximizing the 2s at 1s, 2s, and 3s, and you're going like, turn 1 or 2, I'm going to create an artifact that I can make into a 5/4 attacker, that's really great pressure. And, you know, you don't necessarily need to hit your 4-drop in that scenario. But it is when it's put into a graveyard instead, right? And like, so if this just gets pacified or tapped, you get 2 for 1. and it's just sitting there. It doesn't give you the value back, so it kind of needs to die. I don't know. This one's a fun one to speculate on, because this one's kind of a tricky one. I think it's an A plus B card, and is difficult, right? So like if you don't create the artifact on turn 3, then this is worse, right? Like let's say that you had to play the Windrake on 3, and then you're doing this on 4. Yeah, you like the design that it makes putting 1-drops in your deck somewhat punishing, but like the 1-drop uncommon that creates the map token is one of its enablers, right? Yeah, no, it's really interesting from a design perspective, because you're right. Like you don't, ideally you want a deck that's heavy on 3s if you're doing the Discover 3 thing, right? You want to maximize it hitting the 3 part of the 3. But it can get you. It can be neutral. I don't know. This one's like, these cards. I like them. I like that they bring these back every single time, because like there's always something like this that makes us kind of scratch our heads and go, is this actually going to be good? The fact that, okay, so one, this is sorcery speed. Can't do it as an instant. It's not really card neutral. But if you're building it right, then this can do the thing, right? I'm gonna give this one a C. I haven't lost complete hope in this, because like a 5/4 haste on turn 3 is a beating, right? Right, it can absolutely pop off. But generally, cards in limited that require the A plus B, right? Like we need something to create that artifact on turn 1 or 2. There's a lot in blue white though, right? I think that this is probably a B in blue white. But with that, we got to black. I'm going to take another quick little break so that my voice isn't just completely fried by the end of this, and I will be right back. All right, and we're back and ready to cover black. All right. So, yeah, I think that if we're talking about the glyph, right? So if the glyph did work on ETB, it would be too good, right? Because it would be a built-in 2-for-1. Like you would just, it would immediately, it would be better than the Mightstone animation from Brothers War, right? Because like you could immediately cast that card, not just draw it. So I do think though that it is interesting that it's going to give it gives the tempo build. This is why I was wondering, is the blue-white deck going to be this mid-rangey crafty deck, or is it going to be something that like really hits hard, right? And maybe blue-white is more crafty and slow, whereas like blue-red with the pirates that also have treasure, you know, being able to play flyers and then create that treasure into a 5/4 on later turn seems pretty decent, right? I think C is decent, right? Like I think there's going to be some decks that just don't want it, right? Seems okay. All right, so on to black here. We've got Abyssal Gore Stalker, and this one is an uncommon. When it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices 2 creatures and is a 6/6 for 6. Wow. Okay. We've seen some sacrifice fodder. We've seen some decent like bat token stuff. This could be really detrimental if your opponent doesn't have creatures to sacrifice. So it's better in more of a interesting. It's better when you are going wide with cheap tokens while your opponent is being kept to going small off of removal, right? So we'll see what black has to offer for removal in a small game. But this sort of thing, I like it. I like it generally. You're not going to want to play this in a spell-heavy archetype, though, right? Like, if this is one of your only creatures, you can't play it, right? If the board's empty, you can't play it. So that can be problematic. I'm going to give this one a C, and I think that you're going to want to try to maximize its potential, kind of like Devouring Sugar Maw, right? Like, it will go into a deck, but I don't think it goes into every black deck. All right. Aklazotz. Deepest Betrayal. Massacred that one. Deepest Betrayal. This one is a mythic. Mythic rare for 5, double pit black. You get a 4/4 flying lifelink. When it attacks, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent who can't, you draw a card. Ah, okay. I like this wording for multiplayer EDH or Commander is kind of interesting. Whenever an opponent discards a land, create a 1/1 bat creature token with flying. And when it dies, return it to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control. So this one's the Black God. Yeah, it's a bat god. Okay. And this one is taps for black, 3, and tap it, transform Temple of the Dead. Activate only if a player has 1 or fewer cards in hand and only as a sorcery. Oh, hell yeah. You know, I was just talking about that small game that if you had bat tokens would be great, right? So that if you have the Deepest Betrayal, right, then you can pair it with your Abyssal Gorestalker, and you're going to be quite happy. And then you get a 4/4 flying lifelinker for 5. Yeah, okay. That one might be worth an A. Because like if there's any other discard synergies in black, you can hate on their hand, making it more easy to flip. It's a lifelinker, which flying lifelink is just cheat, right? In limited. And then they have to exile it or it just keeps coming back. Ah, okay, I'm gonna give this one an A. I like this one. Of the gods we've seen so far, I think this one's winning. I've heard the green one's silly, but this one's pretty silly as well. Alright. Whoa, the mono black payoff. Hello. Bloodletter of Aklazotz. Sorry, my voice is starting to tire. Hopefully I didn't cough into all of your eardrums. So Bloodletter is a 2/4 flyer for 1 and triple pip black. If an opponent would lose life during your turn, they lose twice that much life instead. Oh, baby. We haven't seen any just strict life loss triggers, right? Because if you deal damage to somebody, that's not the same as losing life, right? Somebody correct me in chat if I'm wrong. But I believe that if you just take damage, that doesn't count. I don't think that this is just going to be just twice as much damage. Like, I don't think this just hits for 4 damage by itself, right? Oh, it's and it has to be during your turn. Okay, I don't know exactly if this would hit for 4 damage. Oh my god. Insert foot and mouth moment, right? Damage causes loss of life. Thank you. You can't get them all right. So this one does hit as a 4/4 flyer for 4. Sweet. Okay. And the only thing that's keeping this from being an A is the triple pip in black, right? It's going to be hard to play on turn 4 unless you're mono black. But that's pretty spicy. I will proudly not edit that one so you guys can see my humanity. Alright, Bloodthorn Flail. Uncommon. Equipment! Okay, so this is the first equipment we've seen, right? Equipped creature gets +2/+1. Equip, pay 3 or discard a card. Ooh. Well, we haven't seen any madness payoffs or things that you can do for cheap off of a discard, so it's not just inherently broken. Equipped creature gets +2/+1 for a free equip, though. Oh man, that one is gonna be. I'm tempted by this one a lot, just because like the aggro player in me wants the game over by turn 5, where I'll have like discarding a card isn't that big of a deal. But if you don't win and actually close out the game by turn 5, then you like really hurt yourself off of discarding. But +2/+1 is like, think about, okay, turn 1, play a flyer, play a 1/1 flyer in white or blue, right? Turn 2, play this, and you're hitting for you're hitting with a 3/2 flyer in the air on turn 2. I don't think that's a C-. And you're right, it triggers Descended and Descend, right? It helps build the cards in your graveyard and triggers, because it doesn't Descended doesn't care if it's coming from your hand. So this enables some things, right? Like especially black-red, right? Where you're, like, you've kind of got this madness thing going on where, or Descended, where you want things to go into your graveyard that turn to trigger additional things. Like, I think this is going to be pretty good. I'm going to give this one a B. I think it's good enough, right? Like, if it was +1/+1, I don't like it, and the discard card might be too much, right? Might be too much of a cost, but I like that. And with what we've seen so far, like, my brain is already starting to scheme on how to make that awesome. Woo! All right, Bringer of the Last Gift. Let's see if I can get it centered here. Bringer of the Last Gift. Oh, geez. We got ourselves an 8-drop, ladies and gentlemen. It is a rare Vampire Demon for 8 double pip black. That is a 6/6 flyer. When Bringer of the Last Gift enters the battlefield, if you cast it, each player sacrifices all other creatures they control. Then each player returns all creature cards from their graveyard that weren't put there this way to the battlefield. Okay, so it's a one-sided board wipe if your opponent has no graveyard, right? So like in black-white, where you can do that rare 3/1 that exiles target player's graveyard, you get a 6/6 that just leaves it on the battlefield, right? That's pretty good. And if you're doing the Descend thing, your graveyard is going to be bigger than your opponent's graveyard. If you're in black-red, you're not going to want to play this. It'll be unplayable. And it's an 8-drop, man. 8's hard to hit until later in the game. I don't know if it's unplayable, because like we had the Spectre, which gave everything like one-sided board wipe, right? Like you could control how much you give the -2, -3 effect or whatever. So I could see this being a recovery tool where your opponent doesn't have anything in the graveyard, and you slam this on 8 and you're like, whew, phew. But those are really going to be rare, right? This is some hilarious jank. Yeah, I think it's a constructed card. But, I mean, it's not Breach of the Multiverse level of power either, right? It is if you can get rid of their graveyard, which we've only seen it rare to be particularly easy to do. So if there's like if there's a common artifact that hates on your opponent's graveyard relatively well, hopefully not, because that would be bad for the Descend strategy in general. But if we do see something like that, then you can start playing around with this a little bit more. But I think I'm gonna give it a D. I think that like it's probably best saved for constructed. So yeah, and there are times where you just won't be able to play this, right? Where like you have nothing in your graveyard and you play it out, and I mean it at least gives you the 6/6, right? So it's the 6/6 versus whatever they have in the graveyard. But if you've been controlling them and the majority of their stuff is in their graveyard, then you won't want to play this, which isn't really what you want out of your 8-drop. Brood Rage Mycoid? Is that how you say I think that's how you say these things. All right, we got ourselves a black common here. 4/3 fungus for 4. At the beginning of your instep, if you descended this turn, create a 1/1 black fungus creature token with this creature can't block. Okay, so you've kind of got like a rat token. I like the token fodder not being able to block, because in the mid-range matchup, they can't just block your 6/6 with this or whatever. But it does give you additional stuff, and so a 4/3 that can, even if you can get 1/1/1 out of this, it seems decent. You know, like Voracious Vermin was pretty good. Ratcatcher Trainee, right? Like, it depends on how strong you're leaning into the token strategy. Because like, if a 4/3 is a forgivable stat block, right? As long as you are able to clear the path for your Blood Rage Mycoid. And I think the Descended mechanic is going to be very aggressive. So if this was a 3-drop, it would be insane, right? Like, this would be an uncommon level, and a good uncommon at that, if this costs 3. So the one downside is that it costs 4. And do I want to play a 4/3 for 4? It's okay. I think I'll give this one a C. I think it can become better, right? The more that you're able to reliably get that 1/1 fungus creature token, like, I could see this being a decent common. But with general in limited cards that require, like, if you say this is good if, that's a big problem. But I'm okay with a 4/3 for 4. You know, I'm a Hill Giant enjoyer and a Windrake player, right? Like, I'm an old player, so part of me is like, well, it beats a 3/3 for 4, so it's got to be playable. All right, we've got an uncommon here. Chupacabra Echo is a 3/2 for 2 double pit black. When Chupacabra Echo enters the battlefield, target creature and opponent controls gets -X/-X, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. Okay, so this is a good one for like blue-black Descend, right? Like, anything, as long as you, like, because we haven't seen really good self-enablers outside of that uncommon in blue. Even without it though, like, what, you could give it -2/-2. If you could have at least take out something with 2 toughness on turn 4, it's all right. Even if you don't have a lot of enablers. Like, if I go turn 2 creature, turn 3 removal, turn 4, this is just a -1/-1 unless the creature I played on turn 2 dies. But if you do have the big payoffs, you could nuke somebody for -5/-5. Right, so this is another one. I'm gonna give this one a C. I think this one needs a little bit of a filler. Like, it needs a little bit of a workaround to really shine, right? Because without the Descent, if you don't have any Descent, I do think that you're only gonna look at giving something -1/-1, and we've seen a couple of X1s in the set, so it could be I'm undervaluing this, because if you can kill something, then you just need to play removal on turn 2 or 3. You know, I'm going to change it. I'm going to give this one a B. I do think that, like, this one's difficult to, without seeing the set as a whole yet, but it's got such a terrible stat block as a 3/2 though. Like, if this plays as a 3/2 for 4, God, you don't even want to play a 3/2 for 3, right? So you really need this to, like, remove something, but it can be a 2 for 1, which is very important. And all right, Corpses of the Lost. We got ourselves a rare enchantment. Skeletons you control get +1/+0 and have haste. Interesting. I don't think we've seen a whole lot of skeletons yet. When Corpses of the Lost enters the battlefield, create a skeleton pirate creature token. Okay. So are pirates blue-red or black-red or black-blue? At the beginning of your instep, if you descended this turn, you may pay 1 life. If you do, return Corpses of the Lost to its owner's hand. So you get a 3/2 haste token, and then if you've descended, you can pay 1 to do it again. And if you have additional skeleton synergies, then you can just leave it on the battlefield and give all of your skeletons +1/+0 and haste. 3/2 haste for 3 that's recurring is not bad. Yeah, okay, I'll give this one a B. I feel like any card that you can play multiple times, you can use that to outvalue your opponent, right? And 3/2s for 3 with haste, that's like decent enough. And we'll see if we have additional skeleton synergies. Deep Cavern Bat. Got ourselves an uncommon here. A 1/1 flying lifelink for 2. Okay, so the white one just is a 1/1 flying vigilance lifelinker for 1, right? But this one, when it enters the battlefield, look at target opponent's hand, and you may exile a non-land card from it until Deep Cavern Bat leaves the battlefield. Okay, that's interesting. And hate. And then we're going to make him discard. Very interesting. Okay. Well, so we've seen decent flyers in white, blue, and black. So Esper flyers, kind of interesting. And then with the discard part of it, we've seen some perks to making your opponent have less cards in hand. We haven't seen a whole lot of X1 hate yet, but black and red tends to be the color of X1 hate. I think I'll give this one a C. I can't decide yet about how I feel about the low, because like if everybody's playing a flyer, then like you're not actually going to be able to use flying to get in evasive damage particularly well. So maybe I'll have to go back and lower some of the grades for the flyers in the white blue. I'll have to think about that one. But if we can, but if we put the equipment on it, right? If we put the Bloodthorn Flail or whatever it was called, if we put the equipment on it, then we get a 3/2 flying lifelink on turn 3. That's not bad. And Flepagoon with the raid, man. How was your stream? We're just rambling about IXALAN cards right now. It's really tempting to give it a B for lifelink. It's like the lifelink is so important in the flying race. I'm gonna give that one a B. Just maybe it's too high. B fossilize. Managed to go 16-1 in midweek Magic. Nice. Playing what, did you play Vow or did you play Midnight Hunt? Alright, Defossilize is an uncommon sorcery for 4 and a black. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature explores, then it explores again. Oh, cool. Alright. Graveyard reanimation stuff that like returns a card from the graveyard to the battlefield. We've seen this before around cost 5, and it can be pretty decent if you do have the self-mill strategy too, right? And the fact that this triggers exploration twice is kind of interesting. I'm going to give this one a C. I don't think that every deck is looking to play a 5-cost reanimate spell, but there's definitely going to be a mid-range deck where it does decent. Midnight Hunt, nice, nice. Did you even touch Vow, or did you just do Midnight Hunt? Because Midnight Hunt feels like this. I enjoyed the Phantom Sealed in Midnight Hunt more than I did in Vow, but Gargantuan Leech. All right, we've got ourselves an uncommon Leech for 8. We get a 5/5. And this spell costs 1 less to cast for each cave you control, and each cave in your graveyard. And it's a lifelinker. Okay. Well, let's see here. How many? We need at least 3 caves for this to be interesting. I guess there is going to be a cave deck. We've seen enough cards that get decent builds off of caves. I don't know what the caves are yet, so this really depends on how good the caves are as a land. Let's assume that they are common and tap lands. Then if you need 3 of them, you can't really do this in an aggro strategy. And I'm gonna give this one a D. I don't know if I'm digging the cave problem yet here. I'll come back to this if the land turns out to be better. You're saying that they're tap lands that discover for 4 late game? Yeah, okay, so it's like a decent mid-range card. I just don't, if you're going to be playing the cave strategy, you're going to want like 4 of them, and then if you're running 4 tap lands, you're not playing aggro. So there's going to be some decks that like the cave strategy, but I'm not sure that this is like every deck, right? A 5/5 with lifelink? 5. Maybe you could justify a 6. But 5/5s tend to be about 5. Yeah, 6. I feel like 6 is bad. 5 is okay. 4 is fantastic, right? Yeah, I feel like this will probably make it into some decks, but it's not going to be for every deck, right? You're going to want to do this specifically for the cave deck. And then we've got Preacher of the Schism. Wow, from G to P. I imagine we're going to see some more black cards in the future here. Preacher of the Schism is a 2/4 Death Toucher for 3. Rare. When Preacher of the Schism attacks the player with the most life or tied for most life, create a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. Interesting, so better when you're coming from behind. Whenever Preacher of the Schism attacks while you have the most life or are tied for the most life, you draw a card and lose 1 life. Oh, that's cool. That's interesting. 2/4 Death Toucher is pretty spicy on 3. Eats all of the 3/3s, like it's the Hill Giant Killer, right? And then it's kind of, you usually have to multiple block it, which you would kill 2 things with the 2 damage with Death Touch. And if you're attacking while you have less life than them, you get a 1/1 with lifelink. And then if you have more life, you get card advantage. I like everything about this card. I think this is pretty good, right? I mean, it's a good 3-drop. It's the only downside is it's not pushing a lot of damage. It's doing a lot outside of pushing damage, so it makes me think it's probably better in a mid-rangey deck. And we'll see if green has like fight spells and stuff or bite spells that take advantage of the Death Touch. The only problem is that it's when you attack, and if you're attacking into like a 4 thing, then it's just a 1-for-1 trade. If it was on like upkeep or something like that, then that would be even more busted, because this could just sit back on defense. Because the one thing that this card doesn't have going for it is that the triggers happen when it attacks, but it's a 2/4, right? It doesn't attack particularly well. So it's okay for a 3-drop though. I'm gonna give this one a B. I don't think it's like absolutely busted. But that one's going to depend kind of on the stats of the set. Okay, we've got Primordial Gnawer, which is a common, a 5/2. When Primordial Gnawer dies, you discover 3. So 5/2 for 5. Low toughness tends to be better than low power. Obviously, if you play this for 5 and they hit it with a shock, you're pretty damn sad. So it depends on what there is for the X to hate. But the fact that this at least replaces itself when it dies with something 3 or less Could make it decent top end, but that like the fact that this trades with a 2/2, right? Kind of makes me think of it more when you're going to be like, I'm going to hold back my opponent's 5/5s with my 5-drop. That's kind of fragile. So I don't really like this too much. I'm going to give it a D. It might be undervaluing the Discover 3 mechanic, and I'm really excited to hear how to maximize the Discover 3, like how many 3-drops you want in your deck, and how that's going to change like a typical curve. And maybe I'm underestimating Discover. All right, Queen's Bay Paladin is a 5/4 for 3 double pip black Vampire Knight. When Queen's Bay Paladin enters the battlefield or attacks, return up to 1 target vampire card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it, and you lose life equal to its mana value. So they in this set they've decided to bring something back, and then when it dies, exile it. They're going to give it a name. They're going to call it the finality counter. And so if a creature with a finality counter on it dies, it's exiled instead. So being able to play a 5/4 that when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you get to reanimate something from the graveyard to the battlefield. The only issue is I haven't been paying attention to how many vampires. So if there's a whole bunch of vampires in the set, then this looks really great. If there's not a whole lot of vampires, then it's not great, right? And then losing life, like you do have to pay a price for it, so you have to be getting back pretty good vampires. But even as a 5/4 for 5, it's not bad. I'm going to give this one a C, and it's a B if you can put more vampires on it. Yeah, a 5-mana 5/4 is like fine. Exactly. Yeah, we haven't seen a whole lot of like 4/1 vehicles or whatever, right? Something that would trade poorly with it. Or trade advantageously with it. Rampaging Spiketail. We got a 5/6 for 4 double pip black. When Rampaging Spiketail enters the battlefield, target creature you control gets +2/+0 and gains indestructible until end of turn. Dinosaur. Swamp Cycling, too. We've got a 2-cost Swamp Cycler. Interesting. So we saw some of these land cyclers in Lord of the Rings, and they turned out to be okay, but none of them were double pip, right? I mean, maybe the Lorien Revealed was blue, but like the Troll and whatnot, they were just single pip. So you could like play multiples where some of them would fix for your color, and then you could play them later. And so what's interesting about this is that you can use it instead of a land, right? Is that like you could take a land out for one of these Swamp Cyclers. Yeah, yeah, exactly, Flepagoon. If you're gonna do the 5-cost reanimate thing, or if you're gonna do any form of reanimator, being able to get this into the graveyard so that you can reanimate it is particularly nice. I undervalued the ones in Lord of the Rings. I thought the Swamp Cyclers were particularly strong in that set, or the Land Cyclers, I should say. I think the double pip is enough that you're not going to see silly things like using this to splash black and then being able to play it sort of like this is going to be instead of a land in black, which can be good for maximizing your mid-range decks, which you know, big dinosaurs kind of sound mid-rangey. So I'm going to give this one a C, but you know, Lord of the Rings proved me wrong on that one. But it doesn't seem like it's a theme between all of the colors, right? We didn't see a island cycler or a plain cycler. Maybe we're going to see those tomorrow. All right, Skull Cap Snail. We got a 1/1 for 2. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent exiles a card from their hand. Hell yeah, giving this one a B. I love hand hate, and you know, this is like the we've seen this before. We've seen 1/1s for 2 that make your opponent discard, and the fact that it doesn't even help them get towards Descend and is exiled is particularly nice. So I love the Skull Cap Snail. We're going to be playing that in our aggro go small strategy for sure. All right, Soul Coil Viper. Soul Coil Viper is an uncommon snake, 2/3, that has a swamp and tap it. Sacrifice Soul Coil Viper. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay, so land cycling on 2, Soul Coil Viper on 3. 4, we get to bring back our dinosaur. And then there are some sacrifice synergies, I think. We've seen some cards that at least trigger sacrifice, right? So I don't think we've seen anything that's like when you sacrifice. But I imagine there might be something like that in the set. And then a 2/3 for 3 seems decent. So the fact that like you can pair this with other stuff, I'll give this one a C. Alright. Souls of the Lost. Rare, okay. We have a rare spirit. It's a star +1 for 2. As an additional cost to cast the spell, discard a card or sacrifice a permanent. And then Fathomless Descent, Soul of the Lost power is equal to the number of permanent cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. So this is giving me that like Tarmogoyf, or what the not Tarmogoyf. The one that's impossible to pronounce. That is a star for the amount of creatures in your graveyard. So this one hits all non-land permanents. If we had really good self-mill, I'd feel a little bit more excited about this. Yeah, how do you say that? Lurgoyf? Yeah, very similar, except for this costs 2 instead of 4, right? So... yeah, however you like, right? However you want to say it. Yeah, so this is an interesting one, because like during its time, right, Lurgoyf was actually decent, right? But that was like when Dredge and stuff was available. But this really feels like a blue-black card so far, because that's really the only enabler we've seen for Descend. And even then, you can control the discard, so it at least comes in as a 1/2. And then it can grow from there. So it has the potential, but I do think it's something that I'm not going to be doing a whole lot. I'll give this one a C. And maybe we'll come back to that if green's got a bunch of really good self-mill or something. Stalactite Stalker. Rare. 1/1 menace for 1. Goblin Rogue. Nice. At the beginning of your instep, if you descended this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Stalactite Stalker. And then 2 and a black, sacrifice Stalactite Stalker. Target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn, where X is Stalactite Stalker's power. I like this a lot. Okay, because like you can, it's got menace, right? And we're gonna go like this, whatever ends up being the descended archetype, which is probably Rakdos. We're gonna be going for a small game. We're gonna be making our opponent discard. We're going to be making sure that like that menace gets a lot of payoffs, and then in a scenario where we need to remove something, we can give something -X/-X. It triggers Descended on its own, right? Because we're sacrificing it into the graveyard, and I don't know. As long as you can get this to be like 3 power or something like that, by the time that you sacrifice it, it's probably going to be decent, decent removal. So I like this guy. But you definitely need to be doing the Descended thing. You need to be discarding cards. You need to be going for the Hellbent. You need to be descending every single time. Does it matter that it triggers Descended? No, I would just because like you're going to be playing it in a Descended deck, which means that it itself is an enabler for your other Descended cards, is what I mean, Herbivore. But it doesn't matter that it triggers Descended for itself. Yeah, I think twice. Fleppagoon asked if you descended once, isn't it just great? And I think it's good on 1 and great on 2. right? Just because, especially because like Descended is actually kind of tricky to do. And a 3/3 Menace is generally pairs up better than a 2/2. Yeah. EVT says 2/2 Menace worth of 1.6. I don't know what that means at all. But I'll take your word for it. Yeah, I think that if you can get 2 on this, it's great. And in the Descended archetype, like it's gonna be great. Oh, it's the empirical vanilla test. Oh, nice. So there's some mathematical model for how good it is. I'm gonna give this one an A. When I open up this pack 1 pick 1, I'm going into the Descended archetype, and it's gonna be great. All right, Starving Revenant. Oh, it's a Channel Fireball article. Gotcha. That's cool, the empirical vanilla test. I haven't heard of that. I wonder how that's held up over the years. Yeah. When was that article written? Because power creeps probably changed that a little bit, right? Starving Revenant is a rare 4/4 spirit horror for 2 double pit black. When it enters the battlefield, surveil 2. Then for each card you put on top of your library, you draw a card and you lose 3 life. Okay, well this is good for the Descend deck. And if you find something you absolutely must have, you get to draw it instead of leave it to draw later. So that's cool. You have to pay a price for it. So usually you're going to want to put the thing into the graveyard unless it's one of your bombs. And then whenever you draw a card, if there are 8 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Hell yeah, it's like miniature Shieldred. But Descend to 8. Okay. This card encourages me because it comes with the Surveil. I'll give this one a B. This is enough to make me interested in being blue-black. Okay. So, Stinging Cave Crawler. What we got here? An uncommon. We've got a 1/3 Death Toucher for 3. I don't mind that stat block, it's okay. Descend 4. Whenever Stinging Cave Crawler attacks, if there are 4 or more permanents in your graveyard, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Huh. So we're seeing a couple of cards that have these, like, clauses for drawing a card and losing 1 life. Which in general, the Phyrexian Arena effect of drawing a card and losing 1 life is kind of It's better if you have life gain, or if the set isn't particularly fast, right? So by turn 3, you're not likely to have the Descend. And God, I really wish this was also a 1/4, because we saw a 1/4, I think, in white. I'm gonna have to go back and look at it, but these can generally attack pretty well, especially if you can up its damage or have a combat trick. That's a tough one. I'm gonna give this one a C. I'm not immediately sold on it, but I do think that, like, card draw is interesting. Yes, Fluppigan, that's a good point. The the Descend is actually kind of cool because it's non-land permanents, though, right? Or does Descend not care about lands? Oh, okay, just permanents. All right, so yeah, so you can surveil your lands away, and they count as the permanents towards Descend. So, oh, that's even better for this the replacement to the Tarmogoyf guy. Where is he? Oh, this one. So this one's all of your creatures and all of your lands. As long as you don't have a very high spell count, then this actually grows pretty well. I was thinking non-lands didn't count for some reason, so I might be a little bit low on that guy. What I gave Souls of the Lost a C. Yeah, you need an enabler for that, so I'm gonna stick to my guns on the C there. All right, we've got Synapse Necromage, which is uncommon. Okay, when Synapse Necromage dies, create 2 1/1 black fungus creature tokens with this creature can't block, and it's a 3/1 for 3. I think 3/1s for 2 are fine. I think a 3/1 for 3 is not great. The fact that you get 2 1/1 tokens out of it is kind of interesting. I'm going to give this one a C. It is 3 rectangles in 1 card, which matters if you care about sacrificing things. But in general, like, you know, when you see something like a 1/4 stat block, this just does not attack well into that. But yeah, I think that you can do some interesting things with so Descended and tokens, right? So Descended is when a permanent enters your battlefield. That's actually a question I need to have answered here. Do tokens trigger Descend? No, they do not. Okay, so actually there's some like anti-synergies in the set. So that's kind of a bummer. Yeah, so the tokens don't trigger Descended. But there is a sacrifice thing. So like there's a deck that's going to want this in, but you have to have the sacrifice synergies specifically. So that might even be worth giving a D. But it's just so much in one card. I can't. Three rectangles in one card is too much for me to, in good faith, say that that's just not playable. All right, Tarian's Journal is a legendary rare artifact for 1 and a black. So we're seeing a lot of these artifacts for 1x, which is cool. And then sacrifice another artifact or creature, draw a card, activate only as a sorcery, and this is just on tap. So perfect example of why that 3 cards in 1 is useful, right? If you're able to pair it with Journal, that's 3 cards that you can draw in 1. And then we've got 2. It's not instant speed though, so you have to do it on sorcery. And then we've got 2 colorless and tap it. Discard your hand. Transform. Okay, so that's cool because we're already going for a Hellbent strategy, and we get to transform into the Tomb of Aklasotz, and you get to tap for a swamp, and you may cast a creature spell from your graveyard this turn. If you do, it enters the battlefield with a finality counter on it, and is a vampire in addition to its other types. Cool. All right, I'm gonna have to go back and count how many vampires are actually in here. I know this turns them into vampires, but so you sacrifice your stuff, you draw cards, you eventually. This is interesting. You draw cards with this, but then you get payoffs if you discard your hand, because a tap. Oh, but you have to pay the price. But still, this is a really good mid-range value card. Right? It gives you card draw, and then it also gives you being able to replay your graveyard. I like this. You're gonna want it to be in a specific deck for it, but the tap sacrifice another artifact or creature to draw a card alone is interesting on top of the transformation. So I'm gonna give this one a B. I'll be happy to open up that one. And Fleppagoon, you asked, sorry I missed your comment there. You can attack for 3, and they may not want to block because it goes to the yard for sure. For the 3/1. I don't think that's interesting. So you're asking, is the payoff of getting the 2/1/1s worth it so that your opponent won't block it? And I think because it's 3 damage and not 2, right? People are going to be encouraged to block it. The 3/1s are a good clock, right? Where this is going to be decent is in more of a mid-range attrition deck, I'm guessing. Right? That's what my instinct is saying. Is like whatever the sacrifice deck is. Which kind of feels like maybe it's Orzhov. Or maybe it's Golgari, but I mean, Golgari isn't usually sacrificed. We've seen Orzhov be sacrificed before. Alright, Terror Tide. Terror Tide is a rare sorcery for 2 double pip black. All creatures get -X, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. Yeah, baby. Oh, man. What do you need this to hit for? For this to be a Wrath of God? 4? That's pretty good. It's at least a B. I'm going to give it an A. Wraths tend to be amazing. This one's not a one-sided Wrath, but like this one is like, I'm in control, I'm descending, I'm going for a late game, I answer everything on the board. GG. Yeah, exactly, Languish. If you can make it a Languish on turn 4, it's disgusting, right? It's like one of the best cards, right? Like cube level of powers. Oh, Languish is fantastic. Yeah. But if you're gonna, you know, it's probably not gonna be a -4/-4 on turn 4 like Languish is, so it's gonna be a little bit more balanced. But you need the payoff, right? So I guess I'll give it a B because it needs to be enabled. It's not just a standalone Wrath. So it's probably a good check. Is if you need. I keep finding myself if you say it's great if is a good way to think about whether or not you want the card or not. When Visage of Dread enters the battlefield, Visage of Dread is a 1 black artifact, so another 1X artifact. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand, you choose an artifact or creature card from it, and that a player discards that card. So we've got another artifact that triggers on ETB that you could then bounce or use to craft later, and it itself has craft with 2 creatures. So you exile this, and then 2 creatures from among your cards that you control or creature cards in your graveyard, and then this exiles and returns to the field as Dread Osiosaur, which is a 5/4 menace. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may mill 2 cards. Nice. Alright, so most of these uncommon artifacts are great because of the first part, that they enter the battlefield and give you an immediate effect. And paying 2 to make your opponent discard an artifact or a creature is going to be pretty good for most matchups, because I imagine most will be pretty creature heavy. And then the fact that this then later turns into something that you can get additional value out of should be good if you move into that kind of mid-range threat where you're looking for additional, or mid-range tempo or time, timing, where you get enough time to actually play it for 6. So being able to turn your previous cards into a 5/4 works, and then it also is an enabler for the Descend 8 cards. Hopefully you have Descend 4 by turn 6 if you're in that strategy, but it could help you if you're doing the Descend 8, which could be a little trickier. So I think the other one that I gave for that artifact was a B. I'm gonna have to go back and remember what, look for consistency across it. I don't know, just the card information too. Like being able to know what's in your opponent's hand is like all right. And that brings us to red. So that's it for day 1. I will be back tomorrow for day 2, where I will cover the cards that were missing in white, blue, and black, and then finish up the rest of the set. Remember to hit like and subscribe for Magic the Gathering content, and let me know what you thought about the tier list, right? Usually I just leave this as a Twitch-only thing, and since I hit partner on YouTube, I'm going to be trying to post more videos to YouTube, so I figured I would include my set review, despite it being 3 hours long. So let me know if you enjoyed it, or if you like, I will be posting if you haven't already seen it, I have already posted a shorter version of this that will come out on Saturday. So if you haven't seen that, that's the shorter version that will talk about like my top commons and uncommons, the mechanics of the set, the land fixing, the combat spells, and such. So this is more for the people who are interested in the deeper dive, and I hope you enjoyed it. Take care, everybody.